Okay.
Good afternoon. All right, so
Is it fine?
yeah, the Black Prophets, you're back on board. The next song you're going to do is called Vultures, and yeah, Vultures in Middle East. Middle East. It's about the struggle, the whole thing about democracy and stuff. So
Check. Mic check 1 2. Check mic 1 2. Check mic 1 2. Siko sawa. Iko fiti ama? Is it fine? Okay, sawa.
Brother, dog, I tell you. Tell me what you really wanna do now. What you gonna do? Run, brother, rat, brother, puss, I tell you. Run, brother, rat. Run, brother, dog, I tell you. Tell me what you really wanna do now. What you gonna do?
What's the hashtag we're using now? The official hashtag.
Having all the best of
That's the
wine.
official hashtag.
They assemble to match up your mind. Why, oh, yeah. What you gonna do now? Why, oh, yeah. What you gonna do?
What's the official hashtag?
Why, oh,
Defending
yeah.
democracy. Defending democracy. Go
What
there.
you gonna do now? Why, oh, yeah. What you gonna do? Forever strong. Oh, yeah. What you gonna do now? Why, oh, yeah. What you gonna do? Why, oh, yeah. What you gonna do now? Why, oh, yeah. What you gonna do?
Yeah. What? Kuna sasa do you need? No, it's fine. Sawa. Yeah. Umepale. Okay? Oh, okay. For her to be connected. Yeah. Whatever do you need?
Till we find a way to move, yeah. Our love for each other will have to improve. And if our roots talk reggae starts to move, yeah. 'cause from there it's your third world slaughter, heading for the west frontier. Old pirates, yes, they rob by, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Yes, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop at the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Ooh, some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, ooh, redemption song. All I ever had, redemption song. Songs of freedom, redemption song. Prophets? Yes.
about her neck, craving to touch the hem of her cloak. But she does not care about the temple that is her body, gives little attention to the honeycomb that is her waist. All she wants is to be in the room where it happens. So she tasks her brain, buries her head in philosophy, befriends women twice her age, asks endless questions about history, digs for names that stopped time and brains that hammered their courage into a key to the alley of the room where it happens. She dreams, she plans, she schemes, finds a map leading to the city of the monarchs, understands that the journey will be long, recognizes that to go further is to not go alone. So she forms a little government of her own. Along they go in search for the room where it happens. One day, she enters into a tall story tower with a huge welcome sign on its rooftop. She quickly climbs to the last floor of the building, pushes open the door into her dreams, begins to shake hands, start conversations, suggest solutions. Everyone around her is in a tie and a belt. This she does not notice, but she is finally in the room where it happens. As the room grows quiet, the passion in her voice only gets louder. The princes exchange glares, drop jaws, and draw closer. They can hear her speak, but they cannot understand her language. She is beautiful to make decisions, figure too hourglass to form policies. Perhaps she just wants to mingle and be sprinkled with the heat and of the men in the room where it happens, right? So the soldiers take their position, set to win her heart, body. One by one, each warrior places their hand where the money is, where the honey is. Be careful what you wish for, they joke, unzipping her dress, unstripping her waist, laying her down on her face before they tell her that this is the room where it happens. In the morning, she opens her eyes. She's alone and still by her side. She's crushed, but not defeated. She collects herself, picks up her dignity, walks outside the door, and makes a vow to herself that one day she will be back to this very room where it all happens. Thank you.
Round of applause for the fantastic performance, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Hello. I think she deserves a better round of applause for Fadhalini for an amazing work she's done. And before we start, my name is Danish Odongo. Some of you call me the son of Kano. And put your hands together as we welcome the Black Prophet who are about to come and set this house ablaze. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, to the Black Prophet as they come to perform. Makofi mpaka wafike tafadhalini. We're about to start. We're just waiting for one more panelist to come and then we start. But in the meantime, let's have some music and some fun.
Bongo Lab. Okay. We are. No.
This next song is dedicated to the African woman, yeah? Yes. The African woman. It's a real experience. It's my own song. It's something composed. Yeah. So if you feel like you're beautiful, it is goes to you.
Are you feeling beautiful? Can I feel beautiful?
Wrote a song for you, boo, boo, boo. Pretty baby, boo, 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 boo. Wrote a song for you, boo, boo, boo. When you were in school, boo, boo, boo. Kwenye kreti ya Coca-Cola, chini ya mbuyu, boo, boo, boo. Kwenye kreti ya Coca-Cola, chini ya mbuyu, boo, boo, boo. On a sunny day we were chilling there, tukicontemplate vitu vya bei, with both hands on my guitar. Mvuguku nungu kundai. Now my boys go bass, see their heart and said, she's the best gift you'd ever get. She's so heaven with a dash of hell. Symphonies and serenades.
So I wrote a song for you. So I wrote a song for you. Wrote a song for you.
Pretty baby, boo, 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 boo. Wrote a song for you, boo, boo, boo. When you were in school, boo, boo, boo. Kwenye kreti ya Coca-Cola, chini ya mbuyu, boo, boo, boo. Kwenye kreti ya Coca-Cola, chini ya mbuyu, boo, boo, boo.
So I wrote a song for you. So I wrote a song for you. A song for you. Thank you. Nayebaki suka sikotingamae yangai na mobali nangai pantalo mokaba mama tobalana kosukisa bilobela boya bato likwela yangai na sheri suka lilitama nayebaki suka sikotingamae yangai na mobali nangai pantalo mokaba mama tobalana kosukisa bilobela boya bato likwela yangai na sheri sukalilitama nayebaki suka sikotingamae nangai na mobali nangai pantalo mokaba mama tobalana kosukisa bilobela boya bato likwela yangai na sheri sukalilitama onga enda yao na yebinkombo yambandate oyanga enda yao libalango ya mombandate ae onga enda yao na yebinkombo yambandate oyanga enda yao libalango ya mombandate ae nayebaki suka sikotingamae yangai na mobali nangai pantalo mokaba mama tobalana kosukisa bilobela boya bato likwela yangai na sheri sukalilitama onga enda yao na yebinkombo yambandate oyanga enda yao libalango ya mombandate aye Ongaenda yao libalango ya mbanda te ae. Thank you. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Malaika, nakupenda malaika. Nami nifanyeje kijana mwenzio, nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Kidege kukuwaza we kidege. Kidege kukuwaza we kidege. Nami nifanyeje kijana mwenzio, nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. Pesa zasumbua roho yangu. Pesa zasumbua roho yangu. Nami nifanyeje kijana mwenzio, nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika. 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 Nashindwa na mali sina we, ningekuoa malaika.
I think they deserve a better round of applause. The Black Prophet for that fantastic performance.
Good afternoon once again, ladies and gentlemen. You've had a good morning, very exciting. Dr. Stella, Nyanzi, power. Power. I think we've been very, very enlightened this morning, learning about women and democracy. I told you today, we have strong minds, we are learning from experience. So again, welcome again to our session this afternoon. Continuing from the morning, hashtag defending democracy. So again, a powerful panel that we've planned for you this afternoon, organized by Forum Steve, Hub of Eastern and Southern Africa, where we discuss issues. We want to learn, we want to reflect, and we also want to have what? Fun. You see, we've had good pieces here, poetry. So we've been discussing from Monday the power of dynamic partnerships in defending democracy. Yesterday we discussed about democracy in the context of COVID-19. Today we've been discussing women and democracy. Tomorrow we are discussing youth and democracy. And on Friday we discuss again media and democracy. So keep following us. So without much ado, I want to welcome our moderator for this afternoon. Danish Odongo, please come and take over us and make us have fun this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Power to Catherine, power. Power to Catherine, power. By the way, you all are going to help me make this the most interesting panel conversation we're going to have this afternoon. Power, Catherine, power. Power, women, power. Power to feminism, power. Absolutely. Put your hands together to Shiki as she comes to give us a spoken word piece before I eventually invite my powerful panel. A better hand clap, a better round of applause to Shiki as she comes, Fadhaleni, to give us that powerful spoken word piece.
Every time we talk about democracy and a system that is flawed, we cannot avoid to talk about human rights violation and the need for social change. Rwanda genocide, 1994. During the conflict, Hutu extremists released hundreds of patients from hospitals suffering from HIV and AIDS and formed them into rape squads. Their mission was to rape Tutsi women and infect them with HIV, causing a slow and miserable death. Democratic Republic of Congo, characterized as the rape capital of the world. One of the militiamen during an interview said, and I quote, "If we see girls, it's our right. We can violate them as we please." Central African Republic. Women who had been raped by militiamen were disowned by their husbands and taken as sex slaves because of this reason. That if your wife has slept with someone else, they belong to that other person. It doesn't matter if they were willing or not. Rape is more about power than it is about sex. Afghanistan. One of the special military tactics of getting information from suspected terrorists was by raping them or forcing the captives to rape each other at gunpoint. Ethiopia. There's a woman who fathered her education and was gang raped publicly to always remind her where her true place is, under a man. Mathare. A 6-month-old baby is raped by father while mother had gone to the shop to buy groceries. Bungoma. An 86-year-old woman is raped repeatedly, at least every day. 3 assailants, ages ranging from teenagers to around 50 years, and this is happening with the full knowledge of her neighbors. And one of them had this to say, "Someone, please come and take her. We don't know what to do with her anymore." Because at that point, she turned from a human to burden. Rape is more about power than it is about sex. It is a weapon that is used to silence, to further agendas, to unmarked territory that has already been marked. It is a weapon that has been used over time and again to silence. And to prove this example, of all the examples stated above, none have been about the victim's length of skirt or their sexiness thereof, because rape is more about power than it is about sex.
She deserves a better round of applause for that fantastic piece. And before we start, allow me to break protocol a bit and put your hands together to the social justice movement feminists who have just one brief song before we invite our panelists to start. Put your hands together to Rachel Mwikali, Pesh, and Njoki Geshanja.
Comrades, power. Feminist power. And as we say it radically, pussy. Pussy. So as a feminist organizing grassroots community, we are going to sing. Come, Kinanjoki. It's important. There's no revolution without music. So I request we stand up. Amen. And women, yeah? Sindio, nige request we stand up, yeah? Yelele, ya, ya, we, ya, 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 Yelele ya ya. Ya 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 ya. Wololo ya ya we. Ya 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 ya. Oh ya 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 ya. Na patriarchy webaki nyuma sitoenda na patriarchy webaki masitoenda welele ya ya we ya 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 oh ya 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 ubakaji webaki nyuma sitoenda ubakaji webaki sitoenda yelele ya ya we ya 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 oh ya 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 na dhulma webaki nyuma sitoenda na dhulma webaki sitoenda wololo ya ya we kantia tunaenda na feminism wololo ya 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 na feminist pamoja 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 tuashin na feminist pamoja pamoja tu olayo olayo I can't feel it olayo feminist power feminist power.
There's something we say in the social justice movement that before we start, we need to have Juogi come over us. I don't know what that means, but thank you so much, ladies, for the fantastic presentation. And now I don't even know how to start because we have such a powerful panel that is comprised of, powerful politicians and powerful thinkers and powerful academics. And I feel actually overwhelmed. And today, for the first time, I have my, handkerchief on because then it's just too hot in here. Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, as we start with Dr. Stella Nyanzi. I don't even know how to introduce her. Manze, just come up here. I don't even know how to Viva! Viva! The second person I want to invite is Patricia. Patricia Mutheu. Put your hands together for Patricia. Viva! And then the third panelist I want to invite here is Dr. Olunga. Put your hands together for Professor Olunga, actually. Viva! Viva Olunga, viva! Viva Olunga, viva! And the powerhouse herself, I think I've actually been inspired a lot by her. Put your hands together to Honorable Millie Mabona, who has completely defined this. Lale lale na Millie usilale, bado mapambano mapambano mapambano, bado mapambano mapambano, bado mapambano. And by the way, today we are going to tear down all these walls and labels that put women down. Down with labels, down. Down with labels, down. And down. And of course, this conversation is brought to you courtesy of Forum C, Power 254, Siasa Place and African Uncensored. My name is Danish Odongo. I am a local journalist. I do political affairs. I also do development work. But above all else, I love progressive politics and I love development work. So before we start, I just want to get your opinion from this panel conversation. Some of those labels you've had, some of those labels you've read, they may be negative, they may be, regardless of how you define them. I'd like to hear two members of this audience to tell me some of the labels they've had. You can put up your hands together, please. Put your hands together. Any of the labels you've had about women and politics? Michael, yes? Yeah, okay. Yeah, the women cannot elect women. Down with that thought, down. Any other thought we have? Any other? All right, yeah?
That women in politics have to sleep their way up.
Any other label we've had? Two more before we start. Any? Oh yeah, Rachel.
The one that I've heard is Millie, she's a army herself. Yes, army herself. Because if you are to bring labels down, Me, I'm going the positive one. Yeah, exactly.
She's an army herself. If you're gonna go to war, if you have Millie alone, you've won that war. Sindio? Forward with that thought, forward. And let me start by that conversation, Millie. You've been in politics, of course, started off as a nominated member of parliament, then eventually won in a really contested election and a rural constituency in a party that has an interesting, outlook. What is in a label, what is in a label for you as a female politician who has been in parliament, I think this is the second term? Yes, for you, what is in a label, third term right now? Yes. Asante sana.
And sorry, I thought we were actually doing this virtual, so I was actually waiting for my password in your house. Then I was told, no, you gotta be here physically. So I'm very excited with the positive energy, meeting very great people, including Stella. The rest of you, at least I've met you, but I met Stella for the first time. We always communicate online, seeing very nice hairdos, African ones, which you have to teach me before I leave here. But having said that, I just want to say that when you're a woman in politics, you will always be labeled. I have many of them. I think if there's a trophy for labels, I probably get all of them because I've been called, I've been branded, especially because you said I'm from a rural constituency. So I will get my fair share of the labels that people who are in the urban centers don't get. When I went to VI, I was told I'm a Migogo. Migogo is a married daughter. I'm married in Zimbabwe. So I was told to go back and VI in Zimbabwe. I think in Zimbabwe I probably only know my husband and the immediate family. So if I were to VI, first I have to go and in the mother tongue, you have to learn how to click. He tells me they have 3 different clicks. So I've not even got one right yet. So before I learn how to click, then get to know them and blah, blah. So that's a different story. I have been told I am a Lor. Lor is a woman who is barren. And recently, I think you heard the governor of Nairobi telling me before I can attack him, can I please first open my legs wide and give birth before I can talk to him? I have been called all manner of things. So I'm used to it. You will brand me, it doesn't stop me. That's your problem. If you want me to open my leg, I will not open. You can open if you want, because I have not seen my governor opening his leg to have any baby, and he's still the governor. He didn't open his leg. We do not know about the paternity of his children. It's only the mother who knows, but we don't ask. So you cannot start calling me when you don't know about your own capability. And even if you have the capability to have children, so what? It's none of my business. I am beautiful, I am whole, I am complete as Millie, and I do not need your permission to be anything other than who I am, who is beautiful and gives a damn about, I don't give a damn about you.
Well. Yes. All right, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, this conversation, I liked what you said. Let me just say that you said that Museveni accused opponents and said that those who are opposing the governments like they are poking.
The leopards anus?
Yes, the leopard anus, and she actually took that word and used it against Museveni. You have actually had very interesting conversation. What has been your journey in terms of trying to reclaim some of those quote-unquote negative labels, some of the ideals you believe in terms of feminism and queer words and, just an open democratic society in Uganda? How have you used those negative labels to advance what you believe in?
Right, so very similar to Mheshimiwa, I think that label...
It's okay to call me Millie.
Is it?
Yes.
Shall I call her Millie?
Yes, with my permission.
Mheshimiwa.
She has my permission to call me Millie.
Okay,
Yes.
shall I use both Mheshimiwa and Millie?
Yeah. Just call me Millie.
Okay, I'll say Millie. Very similar to what Millie has said.
Yes.
I agree that many of these labels are rarely celebratory. Many times they're derogatory. And sometimes they're really using our own biology. Okay? So a lady does not give birth. It's not her problem. It's not her fault. I have been labeled around menstruation because I was campaigning for sanitary pads. Our president, Yoweri Museveni, went and promised young girls sanitary pads when he was vying for elections. In his campaign manifesto, he said, I'll give your children sanitary pads because they drop out of school. And then he did not promise, he didn't fulfill the promise, right? He reneged on it, and he sent his wife, Mama Janet. Her label is a nice one, Mama of the Nation. He sent Mama Janet to Parliament to say we don't have money for sanitary pads after he'd been sworn into office. And I thought, you know, they've told us so many lies. This time they have cursed the lie. I will not allow during my watch for the president to use our menstrual blood. Get away with the lie. And all women are silent, yet we all menstruate. So I went around the country saying, guys, give us money. We're going to take care of the shame. He wants to shame our young girls. We're going to take care of our own women using their own blood, using our own sweat. So the labels around menstruation that shame women have been used with me. This is the president, like you said, who's gone around saying that those of us who criticize him are poking the leopard's anus. So he's called himself an anus. And in my head, I was like, I have studied literature. The government of Uganda paid for me to go to school to study literature. We know what poetry does. And I'm like, where does an anus sit between the buttocks? And so I said, look, you are labeling your own self. So I write in Uganda, Museveni matako butako, which means, I don't know how to say it nicely. And I'm writing on my Facebook timeline that he has really shit everywhere. That's what buttocks do. And when I'm arrested, I am told, why are you calling the president matako? Matako butako means, it's like matako too. Like he's not more than anything. Let's not take him seriously. He's just a pair. The just is important. He's just a pair of buttocks. But this label comes directly from him. If he's an anus, he's sitting between two buttocks. But for me, I take the metaphor further. When people criticize me and say, you're vulgar, you're obscene, you're touching the fountain of honor, you are immoral, I have cases in court about immorality. I represent all immoral women in the house, say, yeah. Because, but I said, look, he labeled himself an anus. If I say Museveni matako too, the anus stays in the buttocks. But then I'm saying how metaphors can be used to pull us down. Very rarely are they celebratory. Very rarely are they about Stella was defending the honor of young women. Very rarely did they say she was calling a liar and say, you lied about providing for young girls. It was about she's immoral. And I was like, what's more immoral than women dying in hospital while giving birth? And then semantics are used. And I think that we must insist, particularly if it's about our biology, we must refuse the shame they try to put on these natural processes. A woman menstruates, a woman leaks. Our president is getting votes out of the leaking blood of our sisters who can't afford sanitary pads, and they're calling me immoral, excuse me. And so we made little songs around menstruation and how it's been publicized. I could go on and on. They say to me, Stella Nyanzi, you're insane, we want to examine your head. I talked about the idea that a woman who dares to stand in the places where men are is insane. You have to first fall mad. I like the poem from Shiki, where she says, those of us who go into the place where decisions are made, we shall be raped. The use of the threat of violence, penetrative violence. Sometimes it's vaginal, many times it's anal. We shall sodomize you and put you in your place. Okay? And it becomes very threatening, but we must refuse to be threatened. We must refuse to be made dirty. I like what you said, I'm beautiful. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, because we need this every morning to remind ourselves. They may say we are in sin, but actually we are working for the good of society. We are setting the brains of society back on track. And so the labels are there. They should be, one, we should acknowledge them. I was not prepared. Millie, you didn't prepare me well enough. Those sisters who went before us, I think they took the shame and the public labels and they dealt with them and they put them away. And they didn't prepare us. I didn't know what to do with the shame that comes with being called, you're a slut. She wants to go where men sit. She's a slut. You're a lesbian. She's going alone. Okay, so how does a person vying for office, for the first time, maybe the second time, deal with the mental trauma that comes with this? It's very easy to get pulled down. Even those of us who look like strong women, I don't know about you or you or you, but a label can be it can take away. There's a mental cost. Sometimes I think in prison, but maybe I'm insane. Maybe I'm like who does what I'm doing? Maybe I'm mad. And then we begin to read the stories of other women who've been there. But those stories are not told well enough. And how to deal with that is important. The labels are there, we must resist them, but it's hard work. I'm a feminist. I believe in pussy power. When your pussy is paraded in the media, they draw some pussy, doesn't look exactly like yours. Like she's the pussy, you're taking on all the pussy shade.
Yeah.
Because we say pussy power, but they're really embarrassing women and their pussies in public.
All right.
In Parliament, what do we do? How do we deal with it? These are important questions that even people in corridors of power battle with.
Actually, based on that, before I come to, Dr. Olunga, Professor Owuor, actually, Mutheu, you recently, like what she's saying, it wasn't just a verbal threat, you were actually physically attacked in your place of work. Were you ever prepared when you're quitting your ICT work and coming into politics? Were you ever prepared for what you went through? And was it ever real before it came that men, there were about 5 of them, came and rained blows on her, they used rungus, and all the sort of. Were you ever prepared for that? And what's the state of your mind now? Sorry to be a bit.
No one is prepared to be violated. Not a woman, not a man. And actually, I take this opportunity to really congratulate women who've been there before me, because this was just a very new, occurrence. I've never been in politics, never been interested, but due to my previous work dealing with youth from informal settlement, dealing with extremism and radicalization, I wanted to get into a space where I can make legislations, and that's how I got into politics. And right now, let me tell you, women like Millie, women like Dr. Stella, I have no words to explain. And also, I would like to know how they survived. Because when it comes to pulling down, I think I've experienced it firsthand. And this is a question like, how did you make it this far? How did they even decide to go for a second term and for a third term? And also, coming from a space of nominated women, I've seen them, being disregarded, like purely flower girls, that you can't talk. You've been put there to push someone's agenda. I'm lucky I'm elected, and definitely coming from Madare, this is how we do our thing. And, I grew up playing football, and basically I would say I'm not like really a normal woman. I've been there competing with boys, played soccer at professional level, so I've been able to engage with men. And so like I said, I wasn't prepared. But again, I'm not easily intimidated. I was in my place of work. I had no reason to run. You get me? And I think that's what intimidated this man. Because when he came, and what he did first is he took a rungu from, the other police and smashed it on the table. And he was telling me, get out. And I asked him, from where? I mean, the exit, it's closed. How am I supposed to get out? I'm just alone here. And I think he got intimidated because it was straight up. And I looked at him straight into the eyes. And that's when actually he decided to attack me. And to me, that was a level of weakness that I didn't expect from a man from his caliber to do. And then definitely when he saw I wasn't going down, he actually dragged me down, forced me down, and that's when the 4 of them came and attacked me. So to me, yes, it was more of intimidation, but luckily, maybe I come from that breed that I believe there is a purpose, that things happen the way they happen. I believe maybe I'm in a better platform to sensitize. I believe we need to be more proactive, and also women in politics need more protection. You get me? Because yes, we're protected, but no one gives a damn. And even your colleagues, whether you come from the same party, you'll find them actually laughing behind your back. Like even they'll ask you, you get me? They don't come clearly to your defense, and you're there all alone. And if you don't have a strong you support around you, chances of you losing hope is high. And maybe she can confirm that it's never easy. And for us, for any woman who've been in elective post, trust me, we have to work 100 times than those male counterparts you see there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. A round of applause to that, I think, very vulnerable, fantastic part of our conversation. But as we go on to Dr. Olunga Owuor, I think I did a mistake and I wasn't able to, introduce my panelists first. But so I'd like them to know who you are. But also secondly, why is it important for us to have this conversation of women and identity challenge in pursuit of democracy? Because we may sit here and talk about labels, but somebody may ask, why do we need to talk about that? It seems obvious that we can defeat these labels. It seems obvious that these labels are just outward, they have no impact on us. But why is it important for us to have this conversation?
Thank you. I don't know whether you want me to start by self-introduction. My name is Owuor Olunga. I am growing old, domicile at the University of Nairobi in the Institute of Anthropology and African Studies. And I have a privilege to have met all these people. We had a 2-month stay with Stella. Stella, did I ask you out when we were at a Serena Hotel in Mombasa? For 2 months, that was too long. I ought to have labeled you. Now, there are 2 things that I want to say that is derived from Millie's talk and Stella's. 2 of them are quotes. Francis Allen once said that nobody makes you inferior without your consent.
Yes, that's true.
No, that was Eleanor Roosevelt. But then Francis Allen says, the rarest ability in the world is the ability to recognize ability. Once you are able to recognize your own ability and capacity, it is more important to be able to stay the path. And Gloria Steinem, one of the medical anthropology writers, said, if men were to start menstruating today, every other elective post will require menstrual certificate for you to qualify. You may require a menstrual certificate to be a rabbi or to be a bishop. But since men never menstruate, menstruation has been criminalized. And when you are menstruating, if you are in the Islamic faith, you are not supposed to go close to the altar and everybody else. A biological function has been politicized beyond redemption. And it is time that conversations begin. When I teach reproductive health, Stella, I ask my students, and most of them master students, I ask them questions that leave them laughing. I ask them, how many of you have interacted with the organ so intimately that you know it well? And that if a photograph was taken of that organ and placed on the wall here, you would walk straight and say, this is mine. It's because we've been socialized not to understand our own bodies. We've been socialized not to understand ourselves. And by extension, we have been socialized to take our place, the place that the hegemonic male tendency has placed us. In my village, Millie, I had the underprivilege of losing my father. I'm answering your question. As an academic, I need not be direct. I had the underprivilege of losing my father when I was in class 6. My illiterate and jobless mother remained. She took care of us. She now goes to church nowadays as a church warden. She speaks English. I don't know why she learned it. But I'm here because she is there. If it was her who had died, I can tell you for sure, I would not be in this audience. Locally, that power is recognized. Culturally, that power is acknowledged. In the Luo cosmology, if a man was unable to answer a question, he would say, Millie, if you want, you can translate. Let me go ask the headrest. Then the next day, the man appeared with the answers to the question. And they engaged in what we call intellectual plagiarism. They did not acknowledge the source. They only came and said, this is the answer. Instead of saying, my wife, in our sleep yesterday, told me the answer to the question that you are unable to answer and have come to represent her interest. Here's the answer. Nobody acknowledged. Now, for the intrinsic value of politics, for democracy to flourish, you cannot, under any circumstance, underprivilege 52% of the electorate. Under no circumstance can you be able to underprivilege the people who take toil in single every day to make production possible. You cannot, under any circumstance, take people who socialize children. In a man's life, how many women are critical? There are 4 very critical women in a man's life. Count them: the mother, the sister, the wife, and the daughter. All men want their daughters to be successful. Who is the daughter's role model? The mother whom you do not want to be successful. The mother who you do not want to be in politics. The mother who should be seen and not be heard, like a Form 1 in a school. So where is the example? Where is the example? Finally, when we did research on traditional ways of conflict resolution, in a hall in Bungoma, I asked chiefs whether they've involved women in their security intelligence and apparatus. This is what a chief in Bukuslan told me. At what time will you wake up somebody's wife at 2 a.m. in the night to follow up after a thief? We cannot include women. After all, what do they know? Then I told him, you have a traditional view of security. And your view of security is complete a cake. If I was the DC, I would have sacked you as the chief. But since I'm not the DC, I will now educate you on the best way to do it. How many of your insecurity is based on petty theft? Of young people, young men, stealing chicken to please their possible girlfriends? How many is based on gangs that literally smoke bang in little doses within the market center? How much of those information is known by the cleverest girls in the village? And they would be able to let you know before it happens. Why would you follow a thief at 2 a.m.? Make sure the theft does not happen. And how do you make it? Include everybody in your security apparatus. Understand the dynamics of human interactions. Men, in as much as Stella may not agree with this, men are the weakest link in human society. It's just a question of the right button to press. Thank you.
All right, a round of applause, Mutheu, for that fantastic theoretical background. Honorable Millie, I was talking to a friend of mine who was telling me that all her life she's been told to dim her light for the firstborn brother. She's been told she's too loud, she's all this, But one of the things that really inspire me is how you overcome that. Maybe I need you to explain to maybe someone who's aspiring to be like you someday here. At what point did you break the camel's back of all these perception and labels that are put on you to decide to be Millie and to be yourself and to be comfortable in your skin? And how was that process for you? And how does liberation, freedom feels like that nobody ever defines you and those definitions limit you? Yeah.
Interesting question. Yeah. But before I get to that, maybe I just want to comment on one or two things. Yeah. First of all, I was just amused listening to Stella. Yeah. You know how you get a sense of, I don't know whether deja vu applies. Yeah. It's not deja vu, but it's sort of like you're looking at yourself in the mirror. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm listening at her and I'm like, is that me or yeah. We are so similar, it's amazing. Yeah. But other than that, I would also want to say that, first of all, sorry for your experience. I was very outraged. I think I condemned it very, very strongly. But I want to say that as women, I can tell you for a fact that women in political spaces, and I think Stella also asked it.
Microphone.
Sorry. Okay. That Stella also asked it, that politics is not easy. Elective politics is very, very difficult for women. And the higher in terms of the political office, the more difficult. Yeah. Because I'll tell you up front, I'm a feminist, but who is a very strong Christian, staunch Christian. So I really quote a lot of Bible things. So there is a verse in the Bible that says, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, but the violent ones take it by force. Yeah. Now, if people fight over the kingdom of heaven, which they don't see and they take it by force, let me tell you, men will fight for the kingdom of earth that they see more violently than they fight for the kingdom of heaven that they don't see. And I want to tell you because of that when you get, right now I'm going vying again as an MP, and one of my opponents is already telling me, sending me words, that you go and tell her that this time it's going to be bloodier. And he's telling me it's going to be bloodier after killing my bodyguard and burning my house in the last elections, but he's still sending me word saying it's going to be bloodier. And I have two options, because really nobody has monopoly over violence. So I can have the option of making it bloodier by also beating you up to pulp, or I can choose peace and still win, the way I chose peace and won anyway. So I normally discourage women, unless you're defending yourself, don't be an aggressor, don't fight. But you will have to defend yourself if you have to. And so what I also love to tell men, don't think you have monopoly over violence. So stop threatening us with how you're going to be violent and stuff like that. Because even when they are violent, they are not violent on their own. They hire people. So even we can also hire people to be violent. We just don't hire. We choose peace above violence. But I want to tell you, yesterday I was sharing with the two of my constituents. I met two of the women who are my constituents. We were having a discussion about some meetings we're about to have. So they took time to interrogate me about my politics, because one or two of them was interested. And I'll tell you for a fact that in between I cried when I was narrating my story. I will not give you my story, because there are parts of my story, if I share, I cry. And it is normal to cry, but I will cry in the back. So Stella, it will be normal to cry, because things will go on that are so difficult that sometimes not only affect you, but affect your loved one. So I can be strong, but when I see the way the things that are being done to me is affecting the people that matter to me, then it can break you. So Stella, it may not, you know, you can be strong on your own, but when you are in custody for like, how long were you in? 15 months? Yeah. Yeah, so you are in for 15 months. What is happening to your children? Yeah, because I've seen the photos of your kids. Yeah. And sometimes they call you and say, oh, why do you have to be here? Why don't you let go? And you have pressure. And then you ask yourself, if I let go, then who? Why do I think the other woman should be the one to fight, not me? If we want to change the narrative, there will be sacrificial lambs. We are currently looking at the book of Leviticus, a very strange book, I would want to say, in the Bible. And I'm glad we are living in New Testament times. With that time, there were many sacrifices of animals and a lot of things. And I was shocked that Leviticus talks about all these things. And even the one you are talking about, the Muslims, about menstrual shaming, was also in the Leviticus. If you are having your periods, you are put aside. I have my niece here. Nikki, where are you? There, she's somewhere at the back there. And I'm grooming her to be another version of me. Yeah. And part of my answer to you is actually, they'll tell you there on Sunday and Monday, I was training, not outsiders, but my own nieces and nephews. And we had a training today. We have not finished. We still have, I think, 4 more days to go. So we've taken a break because of my engagement like this one today. So sometimes she disagrees with me, takes her own position. I take my own position. And I encourage that. But that is to answer in terms of how did I get to be here. I got here through learning at the feet of people who have been here, through events like this. I got to be here through experiences that made me tougher. I only wish that we had more of this experience sharing, because one of the things that helped me when I was going through my election was that we had a meeting of women parliamentarians sometime in the first parliament. And you see all the tough women that you see out here, and when we sat and people shared their experiences, people were crying over what they've been through. And I told them, how do you go through these things and we don't know about them? So that we are prepared. Naomi Shaban, somebody was killed right in her compound. Her own child was abducted. She had to go to Tanzania in order to come back to Kenya. You know, Martha Karua has horrific stories. Everybody has a horrific story about their own elections. But we kind of, as women, because we have done it since, childhood, we are always the resilient ones. We take on all the, the difficult issues. When your child is sick, when your child is going, it kind of almost reminds me like a video that is being shared. You probably have seen it from my own constituency. A kid who was killed by a hippo as people are watching. I think some of you have seen it. And you can imagine I'm listening to the pain of the mother because she's seen the hippo picking the kid. And they're actually the hippo is carrying the kid. And they are saying, we are seeing the legs. Then the legs disappear in water. Then they are saying, we are seeing and they are trying to stone the hippo. The mother is crying, but she's still hoping against hope that the child will stay alive. Of course, eventually the child they got the child, but the child had died, unfortunately, an 8-year-old child. But that is how we are built as women. That we see our children being picked by hippopotamus, we see them being eaten alive, and we fight and we live another day. I saw another woman who, again, her child who had gone up to university, and she's struggling, she's in a mad house. She struggled, I've helped them with bursary and stuff like that. And then the child goes out to a university graduate who just graduated that year. They go out again to fish because he hasn't gotten a job yet. And then when he's gone out there to fish with the father, they are again attacked by a hippo and they die. Both the father and the son die. But then, sad story, she calls me again a year. My other son has also just died. As women, we stay strong. Your mother stayed strong to ensure you. When my own mother, my father died when I was in class 1, we were 8 of us, and she raised 8 children and made sure we all went to school, most of us up to university. So women, we are taught to be resilient at that point. So we've learned and we've grown. So because of that, sometimes even when we go through difficult things, we don't want to share it because we think it's normal. It is not normal, and that's why I keep telling my story over and over again. 1, to prepare women who want to get into politics, and to tell you it is not easy, it is hard, but you can do it. But 2, so that people know that it is not normal what people do. But number 3, to also normalize some of the things that our people have made abnormal. Like my reproduction, there's nothing wrong with who I am. There's nothing wrong with my sexuality. Why are you attacking me like I created, I know you are talking about pussies and everything. I was not in heaven when God was making. And if God thought it was bad, there should have been a blot there. But God didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And in the book of Genesis, he looked and said, it is beautiful. Yeah. So if God thinks I am beautiful from my vagina to my hair to my legs, who the hell are you to think it is wrong? It is, I am beautiful completely. Yeah.
Powerful, powerful. Dr. Stella, I was reading a lot about the articles you've done, and I love this thing you said that please be bad for the sake of the cause. We usually told this thing that good ladies don't get the corner office, So that's one.
Before she responds, I forgot to say something. That I've actually written a book. based on my experiences.
Okay.
In my first election in politics,
Yeah.
I have written a book which I am actually launching in the next 1 month. I already have a WhatsApp group for the launch.
Okay.
And it has taken me 10 years so that I remove the emotion from the book because it's very hard.
Yeah.
I have done the second one, and I am taking years to remove the emotion from the second book before I launch it.
All right.
Yes.
Makofi. So yeah, in fact, I like what she said because oftenly we use the word emotion to mean to have negative connotation. You know, you're too emotional, you're too like this. You know, even for men who are expressive, you're called emotional and stuff like that. How much does sexism first ultimately influence constituents and who we bring on the leadership, and why is it important for us to actually embrace emotion? Because I personally believe in being as emotional as you can, because it's good to be emotional.
Right.
Yeah.
Very difficult question.
Yeah, yeah.
With lots of English words. How does sexism do what?
Affect, ultimately influence constituents on who gets elected.
Sexism.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So gender again.
But first,
I'll answer that question.
Dr. Stella.
But I want to say something regarding Patricia's experience.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's also part of the sexism and the idea, but also look into what the idea of the abnormal and the normal, and how a strong, loud, badass woman is abnormal. And the idea that when women are around, they'll be crying and they'll be moody because of the menstrual cycle, and that we don't rationalize like men. We are just emotional and full of whatever. And so very quickly to say that, and also to kind of respond to your question. Oh, I should turn it on? Yeah. Okay, I'm not a very good microphone person. Am I on now?
You can share the microphone.
See, the brother man is helping me with the technology, and we're talking about technology in the morning.
Okay.
I kind of hit it on the floor like drop mic moment. Is it on now?
Yes.
Okay, we're now swapping Corona. So because of Corona, I'll put it further. We had a Corona session in the morning. Njoki says she was not going to use a microphone that's not sanitized. Anyway, emotions, women.
Yeah.
The idea that men are rational, women are emotional. The idea that we cannot sit at the table to make hard, cold national decisions that have bearing on people's lives has to be done. The idea that a strong woman who plays football and can confront attackers, violent men, and say, I won't, and they'll still put her down anyway. We must celebrate that normalcy of strong women. She's not a man, she's one of us. Okay? Because the idea that we are the fairer sex while celebrating aspects of who we are as people many times makes us second-class citizens. That is why they say, the public is for men, the women must be protected in the houses, in the homes, in the private domain. And so sexism, that's very sexist. The idea that those who have penises have it and our vaginas take away from us. You know, pussy power is pussy power. and it really is pussy power. Not just for cooking, not just for reproduction, not just for anything, it's power. Okay? We reproduce, we hold the human race. We're full of ideas, we mentor, we make money, we make cash, we raise orphan children whose fathers have died, we raise 8 children on our own, we fight men who come to aggress us. That is pussy power. And you don't have to kill your pussy and get a penis to do that. Okay? I wanted to celebrate transgender women because they are part of who we are. All right? Women who are so strong they look like men. We have been told, in my language, we say chakula shisajja, which means she's so strong she's not a woman, she's a man. That idea has to be abused because we are strong. There's pussy power. There really is so much pussy power in our pussies. We even bleed and die. I mean, think about it. You bleed and die. Everything that bleeds dies. But our vaginas bleed every month. I think most of them. Some of us even bleed clots. Okay, so dysmenorrhea. Anybody dysmenorrhea? Because there are things that, do you know what dysmenorrhea is? Very heavy periods, clots, you're down for a long while. These biological processes limit us as women. You go to parliament and for 5 days you're down if you don't have diclofenac.
Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And we cannot take away that from ourselves. It's part of who we are. How do we enter these spaces and make them work for us in ways that don't shame us? Okay? That's a question that's important. The idea that we come to parliament and then kill our womanhood. Someone was asking me about dressing masculine and wearing suits to perform the role of what a statesman should do. I'm coming into this space as a woman in my kitenge or my suit or my jeans or whatever it is that women wear. But it's still my space. Parliament, office, politics, elective politics, I find are very male-dominated, very masculine. And sometimes those spaces want us to kill the womanness in us. Okay? And many times the constituencies, the voters expect us either to be women with men. And so when I was talking about my singleness, that I was a single mom for a long time, and I was told, how are you going to run for office without a man? And then the accusations of, there is the lesbian, because I'm also pro-LGBTIQ rights. In my country, we had an anti-homosexuality bill that proposed the death penalty for people who were found to be repeat offenders of homosexuality, however that was defined, right? And so they said, there goes the lesbian. What are they doing shaming me? Why? Because I'm single. They've never seen me with a man. My man stayed in the UK 13 years ago because relationships, they're also complex things. Okay? So if I'm not a lesbian, I am the daughter of a woman whose womb only produced girls. So I don't know if your womb is worse if it doesn't produce children or if it just produces girls. There is a shame of just being a woman who produces girls and you want to run for parliament. You who just produces girls. I mean, just think about it. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that I produce just girls. X chromosome, Y chromosome, anybody went for biology class? Blame the men, but they don't blame the men, they blame the woman. Teach your gender students gender lessons. They really appreciate X chromosome and male chromosome. But what I'm saying is, it's not just the elite who don't get these things, because if the elite got them, they'd interpret them and translate them through media campaigns and community sensitization to the communities. You reach to the communities, the constituency is like, hey, she's single. She doesn't have a husband. Hey. Okay. She's a divorcee. If you fail to manage your marriage, how are you going to? So I go and get a lover. I told you about my young lover. Now that's problematic as well. They call me Muliabuto, which means she eats young chicken. Right? Like, so what am I supposed to do? This woman is trying so hard to fit within your stereotypes for office. I really want to win so that badass Museveni can go away. I was single, you called me a lesbian. Then when I said, well, but I have male sons, you said, but you're the child of a woman who doesn't bear sons. As if that was what a knife. I went and got a young lover, not an old man who would want to disrupt my own matriarchy. And you're not blaming me because I have a young man. What is your problem? Okay? And so interpreting the importance of who we are as humans, that I'm a human being, he's a human being, we are running for office, we are humans first. Parliament needs the human mind, the human heart, the human ability to write, and I don't know what it is, whatever else. It doesn't need, he has a penis and I have a vagina. But maybe because of pussy power, even pussies can do very well, perhaps even better. I've heard, how many bills have you raised in Parliament, private members' bills? 6. Celebrate women like that. Because we can get there and work. Really, we can. There are bad women in Parliament. I want fear to say that. There are women who forget to represent us. We talked a bit about them in the morning. That it's not just what vagina goes to Parliament and sits in office. Some of those vaginas just sit and they remain closed. We need vaginas that will go and work for us and get private members' bills that will work for us. And I think to flag the story to the constituency that they're powerful women who are working for their constituencies is important. And to show it's not just men who actually do this work, and to share the stories. So sexism is real. It's our task. We have the hard work again of showing actually we're not only silent, we have brains, we think, we have ability to mobilize, etc., etc. Debunk the stereotypes because they're there and they're real, and I think also refuse to be held back by them. Why was I doing so much work trying to get a younger lover? Asking him if he'll walk with me through the campaign trail. He's running his own campaign, sadly enough. He's busy running his campaign, I have to stick it out on my own, although I have my young lover still. So how stereotypes shape us, sometimes to make mistakes. So pray for my lover. He's also running for parliament, and I'm running for parliament. And then they ask the questions, how are you going to have two of you in parliament? What are you going to be doing? Right? And so I guess sexism is real. They don't ask him why he has an older woman. They're asking me why I have a younger man. They don't ask him why he's running while I'm running. They ask me, why are you running for office when he's They don't ask him, why aren't you supporting Stella? They ask me, why aren't you supporting your husband? They want me to dim my light for him. They're not asking him do the same, stay home and support Stella. They're like, Stella, why don't you just stay home and support your man? You know, like the real double standards. It happened coincidentally that I've been teaching, when I was teaching about double standards, and the demands on women are way greater than they are for men. And now I'm living it. I don't have to teach it, I live it. I say, look at my lover. Ask him all those questions you're asking me if you want to be fair. But nobody asks him, they ask me. Yeah, so for now, is that good enough?
That's good enough.
Okay.
That's good enough. Makofi kwa kitafadhalini. So we're going to take, next questions and then prepare your questions that then we make it interactive. But, Mutheu, I covered the 2017 elections as a reporter. And the violence I witnessed landed me in a mental health hospital, for me as a reporter. So I'm trying to imagine you're smack at the heart of it, as a politician, an MCA, And maybe perhaps you don't tell stories of people like you who go in and win. We only tell stories of those who don't win, and we say how men are many there and stuff like that, Maybe just so that you put in our mind, how was it for you in 2017? And what was the hack? Tell us the hack. You, the master. Tell us your hack and how you managed the campaigns, the violence, the nomination, and eventually you made it to City Hall, which is also another. Yeah.
Like I said before, I'd never engaged in politics before, but I was active when it came to football and other matters regarding my hood. And I used to do consultancy with a program, a USA program, Kenya, KTI, Kenya Transition Initiative. And I went around like all the informal settlements of Nairobi. And that's when I realized maybe like there's a missing link in administration. So I decided I want to give it a shot. But it was basically to empower this girl in informal settlement that they can do it. So I got in with that kind of mentality. Even if I don't win, then I will make a woman or a girl down there believe that we can do it, you can actually vie. So I went in with that kind of mentality, and definitely I had challenges because I had people approach me telling me, no, you need a good father, you need to know who is who, you need to know, I didn't know anyone. And I think Rachel can bear me witness. I had no idea of how to run a campaign. And I abstained from, meeting all these women who are called Awa ni wale wa mama wa siasa. I abstained because I didn't want them to derail me. I was told for me to get in, I have to know, I don't know commander. I didn't know anyone. You get me? But I went in. I interacted with the youth, I told them what I wanted for them. And you can imagine this is Madare. And I never lost my red lipstick. I never lost my long weave. I never lost what you see. I went in because I wanted to prove a point, like I would say Stella and Millie. I wanted to prove a point. I never gave into those stereotypes that when I'm going to see at your mama, I have to dress in a certain way. Rachel, you can bear me witness. I was me, and then I won. But after winning, do you know what they told me? I was just voted in because of my face. That a man would look at that poster and get confused. So all that credit was taken away from me. And then general elections, I won. And this is a proof. When you believe in anything, you can achieve it. And you only need God. You don't need anyone to actually, like I would say, propel you to the next step. As long as you believe in yourself, you will do it. And then I got into parliament. And I fought hard. I'm a chair of a committee. Again, it was not easy. Because you can imagine we are only 5 elected women in Nairobi out of 85. it's not easy. I'm the only elected chair lady right now in the county assembly. And do you think it was easy? It wasn't. At some point, I was being called slay queen just because of the way I dress. For me, it's like they were forcing me to drop my 6-inch and how I represent myself. And if I wasn't strong enough, I would think there's something wrong with me. Or I should dress down so that I can feel accommodated. But I never gave in into that. Definitely, Mathare is a very, very complex place to do politics. There are a lot of stereotypes. But you have to work with it. You have to believe in yourself. And I did it. And I hope I've inspired lots of women. Right now, I think I have the highest number of women who want to vie into that position. Right, Rachel? And for me, I've achieved the purpose I wanted. I wanted to inspire young ladies from Mathare that they can vie, they can stand, and, you know, actually interact in the same space with these men. So if I did it, they have no option not to. And you don't need to lose your cool to conform or to fit. You just need to be you. Yes.
Makofi tafadhalini. I feel like we have a powerful panel, but so little time, you know, a lot of questions. Daktari, this is, I have 2 questions for you. One is, why are we so concerned about maintaining certain, you know, beliefs that no longer supported by evidence? Of course, you know very well that where women are elected, there's much, you know, better leadership in terms of investment in basic needs, water, electricity. You know, of course, Sub-Saharan Africa is also doing fantastically well. It's said that we have almost 20% of elected leaders are women. But why are we still insisting on this patriarchy thing that you must be this shape for you to win? Well, we know it's no longer important. Why? Secondly, the media plays a very important role in shaping narratives. Yet the leading academics, let me call them the loud academia in the media, have only been co-opted by the political class. So now we have professors and doctors who are political analysts, quote unquote. Some of them, of course, are professors of history. And so now they've become like mouthpieces of politicians instead of dissecting this conversation that then we are able to free our society. Why are we not having enough of what you're saying, enough of this in the media? Because sometimes I feel like academia bows to media and bows to media's buffoonery.
I think, let me start by saying something resulting from what she said. I've had a privilege to interview a number of very powerful women in this country. And Millie, whenever I talk to Phoebe Asio, you see her oozing wisdom. And when she tells you her political trajectory and what she's gone through and the kind of negotiation around patriarchy, her own children and everything else, you get the nuances that women go through in politics. I had the privilege to talk to Alice Wahome. Well, nowadays I don't understand her so much, but if you look at Alice and her own trajectory, married in Nyeri and contesting in Kandara, and particularly for lack of constituency, which Millie alluded to, and the dynamics around that, you get what women have to negotiate in the political arena. I had the privilege to talk to a fantastic lady called Lina Chebikilimo, who comes from a very patriarchal society. She made me laugh that whenever she saw aeroplanes passing, she said, now the educated Luo women are passing. I will have to get there one day. If you listen to her stories and the issue of using the belt and anti-FGM movement, you get a fantastic story towards political emancipation. I was asking her about Monica Mugadi, the MCA for Ziwani. Yes. If you talk to Monica, Millie also had her own approach. Her, it was more of identifying with the big wigs. She said she would even travel to Nakuru and make sure she uses the media. How? Whenever Owuor and Ruto were in front there, she would go there and tell the media, take that photo, and make sure that photo appears in the Nation the next day. So when she comes back, she's like, hey, huyu mrembo ako inside kabisa. You know, and then I talked to Caro, who was a nominated ODM person by that time in Nairobi Assembly. She also tells you her own story. All these things require dedication, requires resolve, requires capacity to be able to understand the environment in which you work. But you asked me a question. My answer to it is very simple. Power is sweet, and nobody wants to let it go. Whether it is in this room, if you allowed me, I would monopolize this mic until tomorrow. But the sensitivities tell me I have to pass it on. That's still power. Power at the family level, whether you're a husband against your wife, wife against children, wife against co-wives, power is always sweet. And nobody, whether man or woman, wants to let it go. And that's why we are saying, we in academia say, if we can go for a win-win situation, not a zero-sum game. Unfortunately, in terms of our political emancipation, we have had what looks like a zero-sum game. The second debate on affirmative action in Parliament, I think the third one, because the first one was Phoebe CEO, Beth Mugo, then Martha Karua. That very debate, something happened in Parliament, I think Millie was there, that was very strange. The present MP for Budalangi, Wanjala, stood up and said, Mr. Speaker, sir, men in this house are under siege. Why? Because outside women had placards. This time round, you will see. You see, that language again, Millie, I'm sorry, and I think I disagree quite a lot with people. I would disagree with Martha in this. That language alone makes me recoil. Makes the very gender-sensitive men also want to recoil. In the sense that you are looking at it as if your gain is my loss. How can you make your gain my gain? How can our gains be our gain towards self-emancipation? I told my wife, I don't want to marry a dunderhead, that when I die, my coffin is on top of the bus, and everything that belongs to me is also in the bus because you cannot support yourself in Nairobi. Then it means that's slavery. That's not marriage. Right? Yeah. And you hear people that, oh, you know, I married a rich man, so me, I'm taking care of the children. My friend, when he takes off, now, back to academia. Back to academia, I see a lot of academic tourism. I see a lot of basic hearsays without naming names. People, the media itself also has its own agenda. The media will call those who can say anything. I think there's some kind of level of decency that disallows you from saying certain things. There are things that can only be said by Elsa Sudi. There are things that can only be said by so-and-so. You know, there are things that I'm sure Millie will not utter, even if deep down her heart she knows that she should say this, because education should be able to bring some clarity of mind and clarity of purpose. Capacity to weigh or to look before you leap. The tongue is just a simple organ in our body. It destroys anything that we've ever made. And therefore, the capacity to tame that tongue is necessary. Secondly, the traditional academia, the ivory tower situation made them recoil. And some of them who were were strategic in politics were made nonsense of. Because we also have a political environment where if you want to show some degree of independence of thinking, then you're sidelined. So we find that it is only at the point of campaigns that you can be brought on board strategically to be part of the strategic thinking. But then when you realize that, and again I say, in this country, the driving force is the ethnicity. My name is Owuor Olunga. Anything I say, you will even brand me Odhiambo before I utter a word. But more importantly, take any individual who goes to press. The name and the utterances may not be different from the street boys in Jivanje Gardens. So what value is there? Because critically we don't discuss policy. We discuss political emancipation. Right now we are coming with a tag called Hustler. I don't know what it means. We are coming with a tag called all this and that. We have all kinds of tags. And all these tags, nobody is giving them thorough intellectual scrutiny to give it meaning. So number one, a lot of us fear getting to that space because that space can either make or destroy you. Millie will tell you, when you interact with the media, and I'm sure even Stella, when you interact with the media, you need to be very cautious. Completely cautious. They can put words in your mouth that makes nonsense of everything you've ever built for the last part of your life. And for the women, the worst and the most juicy scandal is always sexual. Still, I don't know why.
Why not?
Even the thieves, even whoever stolen, is not as juicy as he slept with so and so. And that woman, you know, she slept with everybody in the assembly. So this idea of slave queen, and the worst tag has been this: women are their own enemies. How do you feel to be an enemy when socialization has made you believe that only men should be leaders? And to me, mainly the most important site of political emancipation should be the family. Because it's at that family that this man who wants the daughter to be successful should allow a role model within the family setup, who is the wife, to be something. I think it is important for me to throw this conversation in counties, to have this conversation in Beta, to have this conversation in Kwale Kilifi, where women completely, they think that if you're not married, you're nobody. So these are the kind of interactions that I think we need, particularly socialization at familial level. We may talk and talk and talk, but as long as every girl believes that my space is the kitchen, every man believes, even the most useless of men. When Professor Lucy Omondi was giving her inaugural lecture, she said the following: that nowadays too many women are being raped because our young men lack the linguistic capacity to convince.
Wow. Makofi tafadhalini manze for that fantastic presentation. I'm tempted to bring in Millie first before we invite Atieno, who's going to come and give us a spoken word piece. Before then we come to the plenary for questions. So please prepare your questions. You can write them down. Then we're going to have a mic moving around. Then after that, so Millie, wow. My question for you, you've been in the media, and of course the media loves you. So one, how have you navigated that space? Secondly, what are some of the, how is it that, you know, building more male allies to fight this battle? I mean, you in your own capacity and what you've been doing as an elected leader. Of course, I know the work you did with mainstreaming, gender mainstreaming work within the judiciary. Beyond that, you know, that question, how then can we make men more allies then to counter what the doctor was saying?
Let me talk about making women allies before I talk about making men allies.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was listening, very interesting conversation. Yeah. And I think I said it before, we were actually in another webinar with Stella. And I think about 2 weeks ago. And I actually said, and it is in my book, that, and I'm so eternally grateful because originally I wanted to vie in Langata. And because of different set of circumstances, I went to the rural area. And I wanted to go to Langata because I saw myself as very elitist, a lawyer. I went to a constituency where my father was born and raised. I was neither born or raised there. And so I don't even have social networks. I didn't have social networks. I was never born or raised in my constituency. But I went there because it's where my father was born and raised. So it is my rural home. So when I went there, I was actually sort of as green as Mutheu. And it was quite a challenge. But then one of the things that amazed me, and which is something that we need as intellectuals, when I'm now not talking as dealing with my rural folk women, that we need to have an intellectual discussion about feminism of the uneducated woman. They are feminists to the core.
Yeah.
They have their own perception of feminism. They understand their own aspect of feminism, and they articulate it in their own way. Yeah. Why do I say that? Because when I went, I was told the women will not accept you because I had everything going against me. I'm a migogo without a child, married in Zimbabwe, amongst many other things. I didn't have a home. I still don't have a home. I built a bad one. They burnt it down. They saved me because anyway, the house was pretty ugly. But I still don't have a home anyway. So I didn't have everything going for me. But then when I went to the ground, what I noticed is the women owned me. And they started using language that owned me. And not owned me because they thought I was a powerful woman. Women, when I go to them, they come, they dance with me. And I love it. I dance with women. And I realize that a lot of women up country don't have forums for socializing. They have a lot of pent-up issues. And because the only socialization we are allowed is to go to church, majority of my people in my constituency are either SDA or Catholic. And dancing in SDA or Catholic is pretty limited. So when I go to these open spaces with them, I put music and we dance like crazy. So sometimes I go to places, they tell me, Mheshimiwa, don't tell us anything, just put the music, we dance, and we dance, and we dance, and we dance. Then they tell you, that's good, now you can go. Why? Because the solidarity that you've given us a safe space where we can dance woman to woman. That is a feminist issue. The other thing, they come to me and they tell me, Mheshimiwa, we are very happy to have you because I can hug you without anybody asking me, why are you hugging my husband? And so one of the things I do, we dance and then we hug. And we hug. And they tell me, Mheshimiwa, hug, because we can hug. The men have been hugging, we have not been hugging. That is solidarity. But then they also did another thing which I found very interesting, that my symbol is my party symbol. I didn't have a symbol separate from theirs. But when I went, because I'm an elite lawyer and a feminist, so I've gone with feminist notions and trying to do away with the nurturing and caring things. Then they come up with a cooking stick. And every time they see me, they are there dancing with a cooking stick. So at first I was like, why are these women coming up with cooking stick? That is limiting my role as a woman. Somebody told me, Millie, that shows solidarity. We cook, you cook, we are together. Solidarity, one to another. So they have their own, I can go on and on, I can tell you, I've actually been observing even as I serve. And I saw that women in the rural have very powerful notions of feminism that they may not actually articulate intellectually, but they have them and they understand them. And then even when I don't have, I can give you an example, like sometimes even the responses I give, it is the women who give me. Like when they, like the time when I was undressed, beaten and undressed in Parliament, and then the men go and say that I undressed myself. So when I went to the ground, of course, my male opponents go and say, we cannot elect her, she's immoral, she undressed in Parliament. One of the women told me to go and, what I should go and respond. And that became my campaign. That was all I was campaigning with. And it reached a point that if I didn't say it, people would come to me and they tell me, like one of the areas I went and I was tired of the same message through and through. So I stopped saying it and I changed my messaging. A delegation was sent to me and I was told, Mheshimiwa, why is it that when you reach our place, you are not giving a message of Sianda? Sianda is the buttocks. We want, our area must also have the message of the buttocks. And what was the message of the buttocks? Is I told them that when the men were beating me, I used what God gave me naturally to fight them back. And I hit them with my buttocks. So the women, so they were saying, you must tell them that you beat Jubilee people with your buttocks. So I would go and tell them, and I would turn graphically because I'm also very well endowed. You will see when I'm walking. So I would tell them graphically the way I was beating people with my buttocks. But then also I told them when they were using, and I love, I think it is Stella, or I don't know who said it, that you must also use the same things that are being used against you. So don't even try. My male counterparts have known. Try using lure, I will use it against you. Try using what? I will use it against you. Yeah? Because you must also use what they're using against you for you. So when they said I'd undressed myself, I would stand up and tell people that when the Jubilee people were beating me, and undressing me, they thought they wanted to shame me, using my nakedness. But amongst the Luo, we have a saying that the person of the lake does not fear the other person's nakedness. We don't fear each other's nakedness. So I told them, is it not true? That is what it said. So I used that and they tell me yes. So I even use a language which I picked from them. And even they've taught me very deep language. Like I said, sometimes when the men pass, they even tell you, women hide, we are passing. But then, gigo machiemo. Machiemo is very deep word. Even people ask, where did you get that machiemo? They say, go machiemo means they peep. I told them, we know you even peep. And they actually do it, so they laugh that I know. So I tell them when they wanted to shame me using my body, I told them I removed my dress and told them I am Nyanam, the daughter of the lake, born beautifully. So I tell them my legs, even legs, I wish you had a video, I would have shown you that, where I told it in a crowd and people went wild. I told them, look at my legs. Do I have or don't I have? You have. I told them, look at my buttocks. Do I have, don't I have? You have. Look at my breasts. Do I have and don't I have? Then I stood and I told them, even here I have. So first, the first solidarity is woman to woman. So, and it is there. Solidarity men to men, it is a good thing. But the greatest thing, especially if you are going to vie, Stella, maybe this is for you. One of the things I'll tell you is that, which I've written in my book, is study your area. I don't know if you're vying in a rural or the capital city, those are different dynamics. But if you're actually in a rural area, then you step down on intellectual feminism. Let other people do it for you, but you step down. Like, I still moved on a feminist agenda, but there was a woman who used to read the book of Martha, which is actually not in the Bible, as an opener for me. But it was a book of Martha which showed women solidarity, where we tell women, when a woman is vying, cook delicacies for your man, so that we get there. Okay. So we use the same tool that they use against us for us. I will make you delicacies. You want me to wash your feet? I will wash your feet. In any event, the Bible tells me, as a woman, to submit to my husband. So I tell women, submit. What we will not tell them on that day, which we will say afterwards, is the Bible also says, husband, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church. Yeah. And how did he love the church? He died for the church and washed the feet of the church. Yeah. Love me and I will submit. Yeah. But I will not tell you that when I'm in election. Yeah. When I'm campaigning, I will only tell my women, submit, submit. And I will submit, but not sexually. I will submit and I will submit. I will not lose my identity. Am I not honest with what I'm doing? No, I'm not honest. I'm not dishonest. Am I manipulative? No, I'm not manipulative. I'm just playing politics. Because you have played it all these years, we will play it with you these years. Because you use this against us, we will use it for us. So yes, it's important to do alliances, but I do want to say that one of the observations I've seen, which is very, it's not quite shocking, but it manifested itself very, very interestingly for me, that the people who are stuck in their ways are actually the educated male, not the uneducated rural folk. Even the Wazees were very accepting of my being Migogo. Even the women were very accepting of being Migogo. The people who are opposed to my being a Migogo are the educated elite male. That I find. Pardon? It would be nice to know that today.
Daktari, go on, explain it. Maliza tu, yeah.
You see, when you were growing up in Nyakach, I heard you mention Nyakach or Kano.
Kano, yeah.
Did you know anything called ethnicity?
No.
You didn't? Yeah. Can you be ethnic in Kano?
No.
Against who?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you find that the middle class who are educated see Millie as an opponent. Yeah. It's only them who are likely to contest. Yeah. So Millie is occupying their space. Yeah. The old men have given up. The women know they can't, so they will embrace. So the people who will be against you, look at ethnicity. It's a Nairobi construct here. It's an urban construct. It's about sharing of resources. Who is doing it? The elite within government circles. When it comes to my own company, I will want to employ the best. But when it comes to government, I want to employ my ethnic person because I don't care whether the government falls or not. So you find that the people who will be anti-you and hold on to the Luo Kitigi Timbegi will be the people who see you as a common problem in terms of occupying a space that we're likely to occupy. So I think that probably explains why most of these folks. But you've tried. Just one.
Okay, so it's fine.
I got this from Gladys Wanga. Kaluma used to abuse Gladys and tell Gladys, oh, you know, since Baba came here and I was told to work under under Gladys. You know what I mean by working under, right?
Yeah.
You know, she's now cool because I'm working well. Then Gladys told me she gave a rejoinder and Kaluma's never uttered a word. He said, you know, guys, how long has it taken since Baba said that Kaluma should work under me? People have said 2 years. And look at me. Is there any sign that he has been working? Then people said, no. He's long. I mean, he's just a trouser. From that day, what Millie is saying is that give back in equal measure. But remember, you must also be deep linguistically to be able to give back. So that you're not looking so vulgar, but the message gets home.
Okay. Makofi tafadhalini, round of applause to the fantastic panel. Put your hands together for Atieno. Is he here? She. All right, put your hands together for Atieno. All right. Makofi as she comes to Fadhalini. And then prepare your questions. I need mics flowing in here so that we get all the questions right. Yeah. We can give her the mic.
There's a mic here.
Yes.
There's a flowing one here.
Okay, this.
Or unless you wanted a wireless one.
Right.
Oh.
Okay, let's just
Yes,
give me.
cannot go.
Dr. Stella, okay, we can share this. She can have that.
Start by the door.
Daddy, do you think it's relevant? I need you to explain why society like this and what would we do to change society? Because sometimes I feel like building allies is good.
How's everyone doing? Hi. How's everyone doing? She's our madam. Isabel Shikanga. Women holding broken homes. Gathering pieces of dismantled father figures. Prayers in silence. Trying to be the men who ran and never stopped running. Michelle Obama. Grasa Machel. Margaret Kenyatta. Ida Odinga. Women keeping the world sane for when women and girls rise, their communities and their countries rise with them. Margaret Thatcher. Martha Karua. Hillary Clinton. Women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights, one and for all. Oyerogo Maduri. We cannot claim that the financial liberation of women is what has killed our men's masculinity. Miriam Makeba. Yvonne Chakachaka. Wangare Maathai. African women need to know that it's okay for them to be the way they are, to see the way they are as a source of strength, and to be liberated from fear and from silence. Malala Yousafzai. We cannot succeed when half of us are held back. Nina Simone. This is the bed you have made, and now you have to lie in it. Maya Angelou. I am a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Ijeoma Oluwa. For we are the women who work 2 jobs and companies won't hire our men. We are the women who march in the streets where no one else will. We are the women who clean the mess of our men and boys from the streets and scrape ourselves from the hands of unfaithful men and abusive men. We are the women.
Yes, great. The way I see women, they come out, they normally don't bother with me.
Answer session, I'd like to get hands up so that if you have a question, you direct it to a panelist, or if you have a comment, you can make that comment right about now. All right, can you, there's someone there, please. Tell us your name and tell us the question, who's it directed. Let's start here as we still fix that other mic. Mike.
I had taught people a slogan earlier, and I'm going to repeat it again. African women on the front line. Yes, African women on the front line.
Organize, educate, liberate.
Celebrate.
Celebrate.
Yes,
Okay.
that is what African women are supposed to do. First of all, I would want to thank you for the great work that you are doing in your little spaces.
What is that?
When I see people I have believed in for a very long time, like Millie, seated there, because we have been following that journey and we know what it has taken. I will ask one question. What happens when you go to the other side of the room? Mutheu and Millie, I come from the social justice movement, and we have been going around the country having dialogues on Tekeleza Katiba. And the people that I have been interacting with are the grassroots women. And I can tell you, on the ground, there is disenchantment. Because they feel the women have become the mouthpiece of the oppressive state. Especially during the pandemic, so much violation has happened, and women and children have been the biggest victims. Where has your voice been? You grew up in Magari, but you went to the table where it mattered, and you forgot. I am really sorry about what you went through, the violence. And using your very own words, you say, now you can sensitize better against police brutality, against violence. We come from the ghettos. This has been our reality. Even when you grew up, police brutality, EJs, have been our realities. But you forgot. It took the baton of the police to remind you. We came to Kiboro to give you solidarity. Yet every single day we are on the streets complaining about police brutality. The voice of the women leaders is missing. So today I ask, even as I salute what you do. The country is in a very bad state right now. We're talking corruption, we're talking the clawback of all the democracy that we fought and people died for. Where is the voice of the women? If it is there, then it is not loud enough. You spoke about removing emotion from your book. I believe as a woman, emotion is what makes me. That grace, that is what makes me. Your story is my story at the grassroots. But if I don't connect and relate to your story, if you're not available for me, then how are we going to win this battle? Thank you.
Please sanitize the microphone. Thank you so much, Njoki, for that. Sanitize the microphone and pass it kindly. Next, Pele Nyuma, there's a hand, there was the first hand, there was the first hand actually. For pen and paper? Can I get a pen and paper? You're fine. Okay. Pen and paper for, can I get a pen and paper?
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mary Wanjiru. I'm a young woman. My question is, okay, I have to confirm, you know. My question is the affirmative action. is it a blessing or is it a curse? Because with the nominations, who get nominated? And do they speak for us women in the grassroots? And something else, the women rep. Actually, okay, is it just a position to fill in women who really don't have, I don't want to say the political power, but we don't really see them articulating the issues of women, which they're supposed to be doing, because their positions are limiting. That's why I asked the affirmative action, is it a blessing or a curse? And if it's a blessing, how do we now use that position to now articulate our issues? If it's not, what are we going to do? Is it time now we bring in the two-third gender rule where women are elected, not nominated? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Pass the microphone. Pale nyuma, then we come huku mbele. Just the last one, last. Please sanitize it. Yeah, you tell us your name and the question is direct to each panelist, and then you ask it.
Thank you. I just want to thank each and every one of you for being there and being authentically yourselves. Mine is more of a concern. As women, we are regarded as a marginalized community. And anytime there's a woman who's in power or there's a representative, whatever you say is going to be put on the community. Like your thoughts, your opinions is going to be like, oh, she said it, so every woman also stands by that thought or decision. And there have been women in political seats who I feel have had very patriarchal views or perceptions about things. I'll give only 2 examples. The first one was last year when we had an issue in Kenya about femicide. I'm not going to name names. There's a political leader. She said, sorry?
No, go on, go on.
Yeah, she said that the reason why women are being killed is because they wear makeup and they have bad dressing. So if they stopped wearing makeup and wore more decently, then they were not going to be killed. There's another one who, this year when there was a case of thousands of kids being impregnated, she said that it's because these kids are seducing men. If they stopped seducing men, then we wouldn't have a problem with, children getting pregnant. And I felt as if, for me as a woman, I wasn't represented because it was at that very moment that I needed her voice to speak for me. And because, that's the expectation. When we see women in power, I feel represented because I don't have to tell you as a woman what I go through. I'm sure you also go through the same things, right? But in that moment, I felt that I wasn't represented as a woman, and the girls and the women who needed to be represented at that time were not represented in the best way possible. I don't really have a question. I don't know how to phrase it into a question, but it was more of a concern for me because I feel like as a woman in power, and representation is very important for any marginalized or minority community, there's a burden, an extra responsibility that is put on your shoulders because you don't only speak for yourself, you speak for the rest of the community. And it's a double standard because men don't have to go through that. If there's a man who says something, they're not going to say, oh, all men think like that. They'll say, this person thinks like that. And I know we are not accorded the same privilege. We can't be individuals. We'll have to be, women or this or that. So I think that's my concern. If you're able to find a question there and answer, it will be okay. But it's a really big concern for me.
There's a question, yeah? There's a question there. All right, so let's come and take the final, then we come and answer.
Just a rejoinder.
All right.
Sorry. Sorry, just a rejoinder to what she's... sorry, my name is, again, Bina Maseno. I run Badili Africa. Just a rejoinder to that. I'm sorry for the next person who was supposed to take it. So to the women who were seated there, and thank you so much for their contribution. So my question is just direct. So does inclusion equate to representation? From where you're seated, would you say inclusion has equated to representation, especially of our issue from the MCA level? Because we keep on pushing this narrative of inclusion. And also, I want to believe in the morning we spoke about political parties and how important they are. And of course, we're pushing the narrative of us joining political parties because the truth of the matter is power, like political parties are the conduit through which power is taken. So since these women are nominated by political parties, at the core of it, they're nominated by political parties, what more can political parties do to ensure that whoever we bring on board actually speaks to inclusion equals to representation. But first, let's just hear your thoughts about what you think from where you're seated and how Parliament is currently constituted and the women you work with and for the work you're currently doing.
I have a suggestion. So let's take that round of question first, and then now we come hapa mbele. Sindio? All right. So let's start with Mutheu, and then I'd like to go to Dr. Stella. There. Okay. So you write down go phone or somewhere in the notepad. All right. Mutheu, we start with Njoki's question. And, yeah, you can just use that microphone. I think it will. Try to test it. Check. It's fine, actually. It's fine. This is fine. It's a bit audible, but it's fine.
Njoki, thank you so much for the beautiful questions. And definitely, most of the time, politicians we are on the receiving end. And that is normal. When you're in an elective position or any leadership position, a lot is expected from you. But one thing I always pray, that if we could only maybe also look at the other side, you get me? And we forge a way, because I'm only one person representing over 30,000 people in Mlango Kubwa. Sometimes I might miss on a point. And then again, understanding the responsibilities you elected me to represent, and also my limitations. As much as I'm passionate about them, sometimes my capacity is completely limited. For instance, you asked a very good question. It did take a police baton to remind me of police brutality. No. This is something I've been fighting for ever since. To remind you, I'm still the director of ex-convict. And ex-convict represents the people who are incarcerated and violated. Time to time, I've questioned the authority about extrajudicial killing. And that can go to record. And you can even ask to the youth. You can ask the youths in the mtaa. Sometimes I might not be able to upload or even maybe to share it in social media platform. But there is how I do my stuff. And this I'll request you, people who are there on a daily basis, why don't you include us when it comes to these issues? Have you ever invited me in one, like conversation or a meeting and I've declined? I don't think so. I was able even to give a contact from Holland that will feature Rachel, because I acknowledge the job you do. Not everything will have to come from Mheshimiwa, and this is the syndrome we need to stop. Everything doesn't stop with me. It should be inclusive. You should include me because I'm just one voice. So that one, no, it didn't take. I'm always for you and always with you. When it comes to health matters, it will go on record. A while ago, I came up with a motion obstructing AR, covering our staff in Nairobi City County. Because to me, it didn't make sense why we should pay 1.6 billion to a private company while we are running the same facilities. We have 4 level 4 hospitals in Nairobi. Mama Lucy, Mutuini, Pumwani Maternity, and Mbagathi. And I questioned the executive. But what happened? My fellow counterparts let me down. The motion didn't see the floor of the House. And I'm trying to counter when you tell me there's so many kids who are going through a lot when it comes to health issues and a lot of violation. As much as I want to help, I'm incapacitated as because I don't have fund, I don't have liquid funds. The only thing I can do are legislations which are shut down. Yes. It belongs to the people, but we also have to be realistic. It's something I shared in the platform of Mother Reunion. We have a platform in Madare. I shared. And I even tried to come to the people. But it was shut down. I've partnered with MSF. Any issue that goes, Njuguna always tells me that there have been these numbers of violation and XYZ. So we get into a place that as much as I'm able, as much as my responsibility is to represent, there is the political side and other interests that actually hinder my representation, which Mutheu alone, Millie alone can't. What she can only do is write a book and make sure it's out there. And I encourage you, like we need to be more of us, the right thinking people, so that when you get there, we can make tangible reforms or changes. Because if you let me do it, definitely, I'm seated in a house where 90% of people don't believe in what I believe in. We are seated in a parliament that they think by stripping Millie, it's actually lowering her dignity as a woman. How is she supposed to legislate? How? Let me tell you, it's very funny that even you have to use friendship for your motion to go through. True, Millie? You have to buy people chai for the motion. These are the realities we go through. And that's why when you elect people who are selfish, they will come and give you lip service, of which I don't, because I'm passionate. Because I know I have a bigger, what do you call it? Calling. Rather than representing people maybe who can't see. I keep on telling my people, hii siasa ya water tank, tuache. Because it's making our youth lazy. You can't think. I'm coming with a motion to ban Mugoka kwa town because by 3, a 12-year-old yuko base anagoja form kwa Muhesh. It scares me to go to the hoods because kila mtu anataka ya macho. How am I supposed to operate? How am I supposed to legislate? How am I supposed to represent? It becomes so hard. As much as I'm passionate about it, sometimes I sit in a corner and I get depressed. The first 2 years when I got elected, I got depressed. I almost wanted to resign because I got into a space that I thought, actually, I can exercise my right and I'm there, you know. And it was opposite. So I'm actually telling you, in politics and leadership, we need to be inclusive. Call me, whatever change you want. We can navigate together. We can create platforms. There are so many avenues in our days to disseminate information. We have podcasts, we have Facebook. But everything Mutheu says, itakuwa ni politician, ni mwanasiasa.
Okay.
I'm not a mwanasiasa. I'm a leader. And I feel you because I've been there. But it's not easy.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have less than 10 minutes to go, so I'd like them to take as little time as possible in those questions so that we can give the last round of questions before we're done. Millie.
I hope I can take as little as possible, but let me try. Thank you, Njoki, and you're very passionate about your presentation. And I think that's why Mutheu even had to stand up to respond.
Yeah.
And what I can tell you is the reality when you are in politics, when you are elected is very, very different. So I understand that when she's telling you that. And that's why when I'm telling you I'm removing emotion basically means that I cry when I read my own books. So I'm removing that from it so that I look more objective, and then I'm not judged from the stereotype that, look, she's just writing, things that are emotional. Because I want people to learn about principles. I want them to learn lessons that I've learned. And one of the lessons that I have in my second book is what you call crisis of expectations. That when I got elected, you feel excited. You're like, wow, I've gotten in. We fought so much for women to be elected. Now I'm elected. You think it's over. No, it's not over. You start dealing with a new set. That's why I have already 2 books based on my own experience. And one of them, this crisis of expectation, means that right now, what I'd rather be doing in my constituency is meeting women, talking with them, dancing with them, teaching them, staying in solidarity with them. But guess what it costs me per day to do that? $500,000. Where do I get that from? That's reality, and I'm not exaggerating. For me to live here to meet my constituents on a daily basis, I must have 500,000. Where do I get that from? So I will only be seen once a month when I'm able to get money from Parliament. So if I get 800,000, I go with 500,000. By the time I come back, I am on the negative. I take the 300 that is back, take another loan in the bank. I am on a negative. Most parliamentarians are on the negative. Most MCAs are on the negative because we are serving the public. And that is because the public has brought in a new terms of reference or job description that we don't have in Kenya. I don't know, Uganda have trained the women. They say it's bad, but it's not that bad. But in Kenya, our role is legislative representation and oversight, but people have added another one, which is development. When I go to meet women, I cannot give them I can't go empty-handed. And it is even worse when you are a woman, because they tell you, Mheshimiwa, when we see you, we know that you are like a mother, you understand, you are the one who knows the pain of women who have stayed without food. So even if I don't have, I'll go and tell my people, run quickly and borrow money because I'm a mother who understands the pain. And not only that, sometimes people come before you and you can actually see, like in a case when I was in Fangano Island, one of the islands in my constituency, and I was meeting the public, and then I remember so clearly it was a Sunday because this old woman with a walking stick, everybody is sitting here, and she walks directly towards me. She didn't, because most people fear they'll go and see it from a distance, but this woman walks direct to me, and she says, Mheshimiwa, I want to talk to you. But because she looked like she was even shaking, somebody brought her chair. So she sat next to me. So I said, what is the issue? Most people will tell me I have grandchildren, I have no bursary. So I said, give me the details. We give them bursary and stuff like that. Then she said, I had actually gone to church, hoping that the church can give me something to eat, because sometimes they do. At least every Sunday, I'm sure of eating something. But this Sunday, they didn't have anything. But I've heard you're here, so I've actually walked a distance. The church she had come from was not close, so she couldn't even afford a motorbike. So she came and sat and hoped that I could give her something to eat. So I sent people while I'm sitting and addressing the public, because I told her, can you wait? She says, no, I'm really hungry. So we brought her milk and bread. She ate milk and bread while I'm seated. Then I called a motorbike to give her and then sent her home. That is the main work. It has taken 90%. Not legislation that we do here. Yeah? So that is one of the realities that we are dealing with. The other issue is, which I would actually connect to the question, is affirmative action. Is it working for us? It is actually a double-edged sword, if you ask me. I can give you examples, because I came in on affirmative action. Perhaps I wouldn't have come into Parliament if I didn't come in through affirmative action. I was first nominated. That is affirmative action. And I did very, very well. That is why a rural constituency knew that there's a woman talking about Suba people in Parliament. That's how they knew that there's a woman talking about fishermen in Parliament. And when I went down one time, they told me, Mheshimiwa Millie, you talk about something called X2 Instu, because I used to talk about Exitu in Zitu in fishing. Yeah. But the fishermen just knew there was something about fishing called X2 Instu. Yeah. We want to elect you. And they carried placards when I went to this small island for the first time. Yeah. I represent about 7 islands. So they told me, one of the smallest, which is very close to Uganda. So they told me, X2, whatever. Yeah. And they supported me because of that. Because I was nominated. But then now the tragedy with that is the reality is that now we are more, but we are being heard less on women's issues. That is the reality. And it is because, and I think I said it when we were in the meeting with Stella, that not all women are feminists, and not all feminists are women. So you have work cut out for you to ensure that the ones who came in, let us not make killer assumptions. Yeah. One of the killer assumptions we are making is that all women who came in here were in social justice. No, some were bankers who know nothing about it. I know one woman who has come in through this same affirmative action. When we were running on the streets before I got into Parliament, when we were wanting a constitution amendment, when we were being beaten by the police, because I've been beaten severally on the streets by the police. And while we were hiding from the police, I ran into her shop, because she had a shop. And when I ran into her shop, she gave me a lecture, how we are embarrassing women, how we are not behaving well, how, I've never reminded her, by the way, about it, but she was like, you should be proper, blah, 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 blah. You are lawyer educated, how can you embarrass women like that? But my embarrassment has seen her coming into parliament. So now she's learning, but she hadn't learned that. So you have work cut out for you to work with me, the few of us who have been in the social justice system, so that our voices can continue being heard. That's why I still come for forums like this, because we are still in this journey together, and we are not many. We are few. Otherwise, this place would be, you would be streaming, I don't know up to which area. But we need to be more. And the other issue that I want to say again is all, based on that is all women are really not homogeneous, and I've said it before. We don't all react the same way as plant to photosynthesis, that if there was a plant and there is a light, we all move. We are all very different, and people will react very different to different situations. And Maseno, you're asking whether inclusion means representation. That is yes and no. Yes, because if you see my life and Shebesh, for instance, it tells you that inclusion led to representation. Njokindungu, inclusion led to representation, because you could hear our voices very strongly. And I can tell you very confidently that we redefined what nomination is actually about. If you saw what me and Shebesh and the people who are nominated that period did, we changed what nomination is about. Now women who are nominated understand. Look at Denita Gatti. She came in walking after the accident. She's been disabled. She cannot say 2 sentences without talking about persons with disability. Because now she was elected, now she's nominated. And she is very strong, because we defined what that special seat is about. And because of that, we have a lot of many women who have come in areas. I think we have not, the academia is a bit asleep. That you need to do an analysis of what nomination has done. We have the first women, in minority areas, because they were first nominated. We have Sophia Abdi Noor, who first won in 1997, and the seat was taken away from her after she got the ticket. Now she came in nomination, and they saw what she could do. They have elected her. We are seeing women who are Maasai women, Suba women, Aisha, Mishi, all over, in constituencies that they would never have been elected. They are now coming in because of affirmative action. And then, so inclusion is, I would say yes and no, that it is both representation and not necessarily representation, because of also what I've said, not all women are feminists. Because there are women who go in and fight like men. And they are the ones that sometimes I could say I almost consider them almost honorary men. Not the ones that are tough like us, and then people call us honorary men. I think you are an honorary man when you are not considering women's issues, not because you are tough. But when for you, politics is only politics, and kicking everybody that you found on stage so that you stay alone, then you are an honorary man, because you are fighting like a man. So because of that, inclusion then may exclude us. And finally, I think I've said everything, I guess.
Dr. Stella,
if there's anything, Stella will pick it up.
Okay.
Right, so just very quickly to tag on to what you said about inclusion and representation, I agree all the way. I just think that sometimes there are excluded others. That you talked about interrogation by the academia, which is needed. I think that sometimes there are those people who never get to the table of decision making, and we should not think that inclusion, the women's quota, is necessarily bringing everybody on board. I think that the women's quota does things for powerful women, Already you have an education, you have social capital, you have access to wealth or income that can allow you to vie or get nominated or buy the nomination. I know that people buy their ways into nominations, or you're part of the party that can get you nominated. But then there are very many others who can't afford what it takes to get to that space. And so sometimes inclusion and its processes, the mechanics thereof, includes those who are already at the table and those who can't reach there. The uneducated. We talked about university and student movements leading people into political office. What about the woman who doesn't have the education, who represents her, who speaks for her? But also the idea that we're not homogeneous, we are different. There are women who represents transgender women in parliament, who can talk about their issues. So that's a question for me, especially if transgenderedness is not yet a reality we have embraced as Africans. There was a question about affirmative action. Is it a blessing or a curse? I think it's the very same notion that affirmative action enables those who already meet the criteria to participate in politics. If you don't have the education qualification that's needed, in my country it's A levels. Here I was told it's high school?
It's not there.
It's not there. Okay, so so even an educated person can participate. Okay, so in my country it's like, a particular payment, 3 million shillings to become MP, to be nominated. There's education, there's all these things. If one doesn't have them, the affirmative action still does not work for them, right? The first question came from a position of passion, and I want to insist that you retain your passion and keep remembering these people. When you wanted our votes, you came to us. Now that you reached there, you've forgotten us. It is important. They will stand up and address you as my sister did. They will be passionate in their speeches. They will explain what they have done. Keep asking those questions, especially when you're with the women who have to represent us. Because I feel I've been doing campaigns. My campaigns have started. The incumbent is from my party. I have to excuse and ask for forgiveness and explain we are sorry she's not been present. We are sorry that our party brought a candidate who's been the incumbent for the last 15 years as the woman MP of Kampala City. When you wanted to hear her voice around hunger and COVID, it took others who are not MPs from the party to lead the protests. And then we say it's her individual weakness. Don't blame it on the party. Because individuals get weak. Individuals get co-opted. They get conscripted. They take on the ideology of those who oppress us using our public pass, okay? And although I'm going to parliament, and something actually does happen, there are members of parliament who go in very passionate about their communities, and then they forget, and they create barriers to reach her. You need to pass her PA, you need to pass her dog, you need to pass her. Her phone, when she's campaigning, her phone is accessible. Then they say, we call her phone, but we can't reach her, for example. I hope the two of you are not like these people. And I say to the people who are saying to me, but when you get to parliament, you won't come back to us. I say to them, well, what is the problem? You live with these MPs. Yeah. And they say they didn't have bodyguards. Now they do. They used to stop us and give us lifts. Now we can't enter their cars. They drive past us and throw the rainwater at us. We don't know their sending address, their forwarding address. Their phones have changed. The protocol, the detail, security, they're so unreachable. And I think it's critique that should be welcome. Why are you guys unreachable? Okay? But over and beyond that, and I'm saying you guys, meaning I'm not yet in office, so I can afford to bash you, eh? Yeah. Bring me back 5 years. Augustine, bring me back 5 years after I get to parliament. And I might explain, why do they then become silent? Why do they forget us? Why do they say, you come and tell me your issues? When they were looking for our votes, they were like, I will be the one to represent you. So I think all I'm saying is, listen, keep true. Those of us who are activists and protesters and in the social justice and other human rights movements, we must make our politicians accountable to us. And we must make them work for us. The very last point was really, I want to come back to the professor. You're going on and on about language and vulgarity and decency. I'm like, fuck you. Like, respectfully. Like, I mean, really, really respectfully. I think for me that a time comes for the weak when those of you who use diplomatic language can no longer speak for us. Because in my country, before you go ta-ta-ta, in my country, the dictatorship, which is not as, you guys are fine. In Uganda, Yoweri Museveni and his dictatorship, they have totally domesticated and emasculated political language. Polite speech, they don't listen to it. They're the masters of it. So when you go saying, please give us food, we are hungry for COVID-19, they will laugh at you, they'll laugh at your press conference, they'll laugh at your policy documents, they'll even laugh at your members of parliament. When you say, we are naked, we want food, do, and you use the sort of language that I use that may seem vulgar, these guys stop and they say, Stella Nyanzi, PhD, has said what? Yeah. Okay? And so I'm not being vulgar, excuse me, when I choose what is going to be effective, because your policy language, your polite speech is not working. One word, like fuck you, government. Don't say fuck you if you can't. But those of us who say fuck you, let us say fuck you, because that is, they'll say, like she mobilized village women to say, or to draw pictures of their nipples, or whatever it is that may seem vulgar. The language of civility and respectability is the language of the colonizer, the language of the oppressor, the language they used to steal our funds. And so, excuse me, Professor, with all due respect, I think that there are moments when respectability has to be put aside, especially when language becomes a weapon for liberation, when language becomes the language, the only tool you have to insist and protest and say, huh? Okay? And so I hear you. Let's be polite. Let's not cross the line. Let's not go into vulgarity. But really, fuck you.
Go on. I am not backing Stella back, but there's a quote from Kibaki. Kibaki, I think I'm trying to respond to the first question, which was very passionate. Yeah. Leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others. It's not an opportunity to satisfy personal greed. Unfortunately, in this country, leadership has been about satisfying personal greed. But let me go back to the first question. How many of you are still friends to those who are classmates in primary and they didn't go to secondary? How many of you still see folks they used to see in secondary and didn't go to university? You realize that life is incremental. And the incrementality of life means that at every level, you choose friends and drop others, and it's only your relatives who remain a constant. Yeah. So a lot of times you find that folks, when they're elected into parliament, they find a whole different ballgame and bargain that they were not prepared for. One of them is towing the party line. You may have got a nomination because you defied the party line. One of them is Sonko, for instance, in Nairobi. I don't think anybody wanted Sonko as governor. He defied the party line. But when you are now in, so much of his tribulation is because he now tries to do things in accordance to his own mental capacity, intellectual ability, and his level, right? Which again goes against the party grain. So at that level, you understand that you may blame the individual when the structural problem is bigger than the individual. Number two is what Millie said. At times you find it rather ridiculous and difficult to be able to receive funds like Stella is saying. I'm sure 5 years down the drain, she'll come back and say, yes, it was impossible to receive them. Because all those phone calls, none of them is saying, hi Millie, how are you doing? All of them are, mtoto wangu amefukuzwa jana, kuna matanga, unakuja. You know, I remember my own self. I go home and I'm not an elected leader, but you find people queuing in your compound. Yes, how much can you help? So you end up again breathing thieves because you must keep up with that kind of demand. And I think, I don't know how we get some proper civic education to let people understand the role of a legislator. In my view, you ask me, I'm sure.
right from Jeff Kennedy to Lyndon Johnson to everything else, the fundamentals of affirmative action were to help the excluded, the historically excluded. And if you look at Kenya, for instance, right from 1963, from Grace Onyango, 1969 to whatever, you realize that women, it was very difficult for women to be elected. The only problem we have, there are two problems we have in this country with the AA. One is that we have not created beacons for AA. AA needs beacons. Where do we begin? Where do we say is now enough? And close the valve. And the second problem is the process of choosing people who are beneficiaries of AA. Because Esther Keino, for instance, was the director of gender studies in Egerton University. Kanu nominated her. For 5 years, she said not even a single word. I remember when I interviewed her, she said she was very, very instrumental in committees. People just didn't know. She said not even a single word with respect to gender. So the problem is, how do we get people who are being nominated? Is it our daughters, our sisters, our friends, our whatever? So that process must be redefined. I remember making a presentation somewhere under the ICJ that we need, if we are properly going to include women in politics, all the positions with runmates should not be one gender. Governor, president included. I saw BBI was now talking about governor, but they never touched president. Yes. Because when you touch the presidency, that's when you will depoliticize the presidency. If the president is running is Owuor Olunga, let the runmate be Stella, and vice versa, male, female. Because women are known to transcend ethnic boundaries. And a lot of times you will not have two communities against us versus them. You may have a little bit of discourses based on policy. So for me, AA is fantastic. The process and the creation of beacons around it is necessary. Women are regarded as marginalized. Would one woman's voice represent my entire interest? My sister, I can tell you for free, choose what you want to identify with. At times, I also say things that my own family disagree with. I may not represent them. I am sure in the political parlance, there are people who say, and you see, Millie and my sister, here I need a bit of whatever. When a politician sees a microphone and a crowd, I think some spirits descend on them. Yeah. And as you become critical politicians, as you go by the way, they even become worse. I even see in the university, those of us who are taken to be PSS or nominated to be CES and what have you, all of a sudden they're not the people you knew. Their utterances are at variance. Completely. And I'm not mentioning names there. Yeah. That's inclusion, equal representation. I think Millie has explained it very well. One, if you look at the principles of inclusion, asiyekwepo na lake alipo. When we began gender discourses, everybody thought that all women were supposed to be the gender officers. And we equated gender to women. Whenever we started training around 2007, if you were a man training on gender, we'll say, no, you don't belong. You don't belong here. But not all women understand gender concerns. So when you look at inclusion, it still goes back to the nature of who is being nominated, where to present whose interest. Is there a clear-cut issue that we give you our interest? These are our interests. Please talk them on our behalf. It's not there, isn't it? I know my friend, what's this, the guy who calls himself 001? Joe. From, no. Nominated 001. Oh, yeah. The disabled guy from Narok. Sankok. I like him because there's no single day, even if he abuses somebody, he will talk, I am doing so on behalf of the disabled. As to whether he does that, I don't know. But you can see that he continuously represents the plight of the disabled. And he says, on that table, I have seen places where we talk, and when a woman comes in is when somebody says, and by the way, what were we saying about gender? Really? It's not about women. The fundamental aspect of inclusion must be the mouthpiece of the constituency for which you represent. And you cannot do that when you do not collect their views. And I think these are the things that we need to push. Finally, remember, Millie Odhiambo did not become a member of parliament from nowhere. Millie was running Cradle, which in reality was standing for children's rights. Please be visible. Visibility is critical. That visibility does not mean that you become a nuisance of yourself. Make sure you are visible, but also take cognizance of the fact that the field is crowded.
A round of applause to the fantastic panel. I don't think I have anything else to add, and I'll be doing a great disservice if we continue, because we are actually 16 minutes past the time that we have. So this is my suggestion. We're going to break a bit of protocol. So whatever comments you have, don't make them a question, make them final comments. From Rachel, her, and her. Tell us your name, and don't make it a question that when we go back to the panel, this is a final. Kindly, we don't need that, yeah. Just make it a comment, kindly.
Saseni, maybe I should make a political statement and speak in Swahili or Sheng.
Yeah.
Hapo iko vipi? But I'll try because of also being inclusive because of Stella. So my point will be, first, I respect all of you for what you do, for who you are, and for being bold black women who have fought the patriarchal system and structure. But because it's a comment, and being a feminist, and organizing grassroots communities, that is Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defender, and bringing the when you talk about the politics of labeling, that's what happens even to us as women human rights defenders. Women human rights defenders in the room, because it goes back, we are called the same names you are called, and even sometimes it's worse. And the kind of work we do with zero paycheck. At least you have salary, yeah? And mko kwa payroll at least, na pa DMs. So, because also we are talking like, it's important, like we need to be accountable. As a feminist movement, we call also personal accountability within the movement. And being that this is a space we can also like build synergies within ourselves, build more power, and be able to elevate each other in a bigger position. And the reason for me saying this and being reflected in terms of something I borrow also from my sisters in Sweden, when they're having a feminist policy, which is my dream to have Kenya as a feminist government with feminist policy, is representation, right, resources, reality, and results. 5 R's. And when I mean representation, I mean in terms of now the politics, the ones you're talking. And based with your comments, I'd like to ask, because even as a young woman, sometimes I feel we are burdened, and as feminists and as activists in this country, we are burdened whereby we are going to fight of all the women in Kenya, whether you are lesbian, whether you are mpango wa katikati, you are wife, you are mistress, you are a sex worker. But when it comes to also we need our political representation, I'll not say women, because also I'll be burdening you as women. But when you need the political representation of both male and women, or even trans or whatever, hoping that we'll get also representation, is that we feel the voice is not heard. And with this, I reflect back when we did Justice for Sharon. We were with Millie. Sharon, the one who organized the first femicide march in this country. We were called all sorts of names, from both politicians, male and women, to the country, blah, blah, respectability, politics. But also that will come back to my cry and to my sort of consciousness. Even me, I'm a slave queen. Proudly one. When you come now to organizing, and if you don't speak and challenge these notions that works against me, and against you, Mutheu, against Millie, against Stella, against Catherine, what will happen to the generation that is coming? When we try to maintain the status quo that will be like, because Mutheu, she's loud, because Kathy, she's loud, because Gashara, she's loud, it becomes harder even for you, you are there. Because even us, we are in these spaces. We're in these spaces where you feel, unaambiwa hapa yenyewe ni human right, ukiangalia unaonanika left. Because the way unapigwa pia shoulder, because you don't know how to speak good English, you don't know how to wear inches, you don't center yourself in a certain way you need to center yourself. But what I believe is that if you also hold each other into account and give the receipt. Receipt, when unanuanga kitu unapatiwa receipt. Mwakali, you did this, it's applause. Mwakali, you did not do as was expected, we hold you into account. Because it becomes sometimes harder when you have to defend mtu unanyanya lichoma. Lakini lazima unamdefend ni mwanamke kama wewe. Because the already patriarchal system and structure does not work against us. So for me to be like the way she said and the way Millie said, and the way Stella said, women are not homogeneous. That is true. Just pick a course and run with it. Pick a course when issues happen to women in this country. When issues of human rights violation happen to this country, you're able to say, Enyaniko in solidarity. Even appearing to those demonstrations. It really matters. Imagine the activists tunaangalia nani ni allies. Tunaangalia ama ni the power of showing up. We look at them. So that when things happen, we're able to say, yes, it happened, we are condemning, but we are here in solidarity. The way even for us, sometimes we get threatened. But none of politicians sometimes show up. Some are there that show up. But also like now we are moving to another picture of 2022 election. Are we collectively pushing the glass ceiling? And we can make it. Mutheu, we can make it. Millie, we can make it. Stella, we can make it. And one of us call for those radical struggles to bash. To put any support. Me now I'm pussy power. Asibanduki. Thank you.
All right. Please keep it brief. It's a comment, so that no question, comment. Yeah.
Okay, now that it's a comment, I'll leave you to think about it.
Yeah.
So we cannot talk about social justice without discussing power dynamics. In the morning, I had mentioned how up until 2010 is when Kenyan women acquired full citizenship rights, right? So even just access to land, access to community land. So here in the country, we hear a lot of times our MPs and people in politics talk about the cartels. So it remains somebody that we are blaming, a common enemy that we point our fingers to, but no names, no faces. Yet we actually know these people. So I really wanted to ask Akina Millie why these people are never named. For example, we know the issues with KPLC. I personally have a problem with how we are monopolized by the government because it owns 51% of the company, and then the majority shareholder is, of course, the First Lady, Mama Ngina, Sindio. And then we all just know, we all just complain, but then we tell the people in power will come back and complain again and tell us it's the cartels. So my question is, why don't we ever just name and shame and see where that gets us? Which leads me to maybe a second question or now a comment.
Comment, please. Yeah.
Do we need a shift of ideologies that we subscribe to? Because I think this is just my thinking, that the reason we live in such oppressive natures is because we are a capitalist state, because land has been commodified, right? So who really owns the earth? Who really owns land? And coming from socialist societies as Africans, where land was communally owned, where watoto wa community, wote ni wa community, we were able to take care of each other. But then it comes to a point where now, because I can buy land from her, I'll buy it and make her live there as a squatter, or just make sure that the rest of her community won't ever access these things that are naturally endowed to us as human beings, right? So is it a change of ideology that we need? Because capitalism has totally failed us, and we really can't look to any future if we continue under the same oppressive systems, wanting change, but still under the same oppressive systems. Like whether we elect Rachel, she's still going to be oppressed by Mama Ngina under KPLC. So what kind of change are we talking about if we do not uproot the entire of it?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Right.
Thank you very much. Once again, for avoidance of doubt, my name is Ruth Polo, an ardent member of the KANU party, like I said in the morning. And in the spirit of trying to be a different politician, I shall try and make it a statement. Mheshimiwa Millie has a training program for aspirants who, if I'm not wrong, and where she tells you not these elitist conversations of, you know, you need to brand yourself, you need to do what, but she tells you if you're going to a certain rally, just in case, so she gives you the realities. And I think because she's not able to respond, maybe we can get a website that does that that will give us information on how to join for those of us who would like to be aspirants. I don't know if it shows, if it speaks to resource mobilization, because I will tell you, even as a youth leader, or as someone who is seen to be active around a certain party or around a certain politician, when you go back home, either in the rural area or in your constituency, they will tell you, sasa, tuko na fundraising ya kanisa. Tuko na fundraising ya mtu wa kwenda shule. And you're still a youth leader, you're still building yourself. So those are realities that are there, and maybe we need a whole different conversation about resource mobilization, especially even for those in the civic space. They need to know how can they, resource mobilize for the activities that they do. And then this was to be a question. I've really tried to see how to change it, but I think we also need to have a conversation about what happens when the party's ideology, like for us in Kanu, we are center-right, so we are conservatives. But that doesn't mean that 100% of the time I will be aligned to what the party is pushing for. So what do you do when you find that, say you have been the #1 advocate for that particular party, and all of a sudden there's a particular issue that you are not so comfortable with? How do you go about that? Maybe we need a conversation about that. And finally, I think, no, second last, it would be an advice for social and political activists. You need to understand the realities in the democratic space and the legislation space, so that when we have such opportunities, it is more of, by the way, we put you there, and you're not doing ABCD, but we are aware it is because of the party politics, it is because of the funds. For example, I know MCAs don't get funds, it is because of ABCD. But you've not come to us with a solution. So we have come to you with a solution. Maybe that's a different way of looking at it, so that then we are able to sort of bring the inclusion that you're saying. Yes, and finally, it would be my plea to Millie, because you're in Parliament, the special representation bill. I don't know if I would be too pushy, but it states, for those who have not read it, political parties need to have a certain number of women and youth and people with disabilities. I feel like this will push political parties to train their women and actually look for women of substance. So if we could have this bill, the amendment of this bill passed, it would really help in getting women of substance, not just women who are going to keep quiet and do all those things we were talking about. Thank you.
Santana. All right, thank you so much. To my panelists, I'd like you to limit it to the conversation we're having, Women Identity Challenge in Pursuit of Democracy. 1 minute each to make your concluding remarks. We are 30 minutes past time, and we are exhausted, I think, with a fantastic conversation that we need to digest a bit more of it. Then no, come on.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Honestly, the future looks bright. I've listened to everyone, each and every one of you here. And then again, it calls for, maybe we need to reconsider how we do our politics. And maybe come up with new political parties where we can share our ideologies. Because as Mutheu, if I represent Jubilee, definitely I become limited. Your ideas are just out of this world. The passion. Then how are we going to trickle this to the common mwananchi? How are we going to start this conversation that really matters? Because unless they get to know what happens up here, we'll never make any tangible, changes. So it's up to you. This is a free country. No one has limited us. Coming up with a new political party which has ideologies we can believe in. Today we can say to hell with all these big parties and come up with something that actually fits with our 80% representation in this country. If we feel our ideas are not well represented. Because I'm looking at beautiful ideas, critical questions that honestly, maybe Millie and I can't answer. But you have the answers.
Okay, so.
Okay. Right. I wish you'd put something to tick so that we see it's 1 minute. But then anyway, I think thank you very much for very beautiful comments. Try to be fast. I think we need to understand that there's a woman in Parliament, and I'm hoping when you have these conversations, you need to invite her. She's called Honorable Eshomo. And the first time I met her, I'd met her before, but we went into this space when one of us passed on, and we were given condolences book to sign. And everybody signed, and I was sitting next to her. Then she passed on the book to me without signing. So I signed, and I was like, I whispered to the other person, why does Leshomo not want to sign? Then somebody whispered, she doesn't know how to write. And I was like, what? And she was nominated. And she's gone back to school. She's been learning to read and write. And now she speaks some English. And she was picked by KANU, not by KANU, by I don't know which party. What was Kibaki's party? PNU. Because the first lady, when she went to a area in Samburu, she stood out as an ordinary woman with a lot of potential in mobilizing. And we were very strong as an ODM party at that time. She ran us out of town single-handedly. She failed our minister and put in her own candidate. She has done so much, and she got elected as a woman representative, doing now her second term. When we were doing BBI, I was not elected the lawyer. I was not appointed the lawyer to represent women's voices. Leshomo was. And she stands with her Kiswahili, and she says her issues. And sometimes when we are saying in English, she will struggle with a broken English, and we help her, but very, very passionate and concerned about our issues. So I don't think education limits about representation. And I'm happy in Kenya that we have actually seen people in Parliament who don't have those capabilities, in terms of papers, that have done very well. And I think it's a challenge for us that then we are talking about my very good friend Esther, that I met before she was elected in Parliament. And she came to Parliament as a gender director for a whole university and never uttered a word. So those are two people that you need to study as a university. So it's not really about education. It's about how passionate you are about an issue. And then the other issue I wanted to talk about is one of the things that we've been talking about. In my book, actually, I've divided it into two main parts. The first part is I call Principles of Politics. And then the second part is called Real Politic. And Real Politic is about real politic. The issues that you come in and you discover that what we have out here is idealistic. And when you go in, it's a different ball game. So my book is actually called Rig or Be Rigged Out. Because you go in there, and I'm coming from civil society where I know things will be done well, and we are going to be fair, and democracy, and and the first thing you are told, the guy comes to be your what are they called, returning officer, and you discover that he has no clue what he's doing. There are no papers, there's nothing, and it is deliberately designed that way so that you are rigged out. So do I rig or don't I rig out? I discover my opponent is running with ballot papers. I have to jump and physically secure ballot. Who prepared me to jump on pickups to stop ballot papers? Or what you saw Bishop Wanjiro doing when they've hit you with tear gas and you are sitting, people are jumping on you. Was shot at in my first election. My sister and the others threw me on the floor, and I had to jump on me to cover me so that I'm not shot at. Real politic. And when you have that real politic, like sometimes you see me, today I was actually called by one of the media houses and told to go and talk. And they're like, why are you so lost? And I said, sometimes I just choose to take a back step because I don't want to talk. But in reality, sometimes I take that back step because I probably don't agree with a lot of things that are going on. So what do? Instead of fighting the party, keep quiet. So you will actually sometimes be quiet. And you will be there telling us, why is this going on? And you are quiet because talking means I talk against the party. Why should I talk against the party? Because you must also have party discipline. Stella, you'll go there and you discover it's not easy. It's a rough ride. Yeah. Because I have my ideology. My party stands for social justice. And on the whole, we've been very strong on social justice. But we have been seeing things going on that do not look like that's what we stand for. And we've been very strong in the past. So what do I come out and say? No. Even now, I'm wondering, what am I going to say? Because I didn't want to go. Honestly, if you ask Jeff, I told him I don't want to go. Yeah. Because I don't want to go because I'm a very genuine person. What you see is what you get. And the likelihood of me going to go there and say the reality is very high. So I don't want to go there and say the reality. I'd rather keep quiet. So that's real politics. And finally, I think I just wanted to say that in terms of like what I know most of you are really trying to hold my sister here. You won't hold me to account because you didn't elect me. You might hold me to account on women's issues, and I've done pretty well. I think from the days of, since independence, I probably have done the best on women's issues. That I can say. I give myself accolades because if you don't, nobody ever will. Yeah. But I love to give myself accolades. But I can tell you that the reality for most of us who are elected, I'll give you my one day today, which is a lighter day. I woke up in the morning. I always start with devotion. I pray before I leave. I had a virtual meeting. I decided to give my constituents 1 hour of phone. It turned out to be 3 because when it starts, if I switched on my phone now and I switch it on, first now we have different platforms. WhatsApp. Then when the WhatsApp is off, I go to Messenger. Messenger is off. I go to email. Email is off. Phones are ringing. 3 hours. I put aside 1 hour. I did 3 hours. I had a meeting with somebody who has come all the way from the constituency to see me. He was late, and I was running for this meeting. He's got back. I won't see him. Yesterday, the same thing happened. When we were doing the training, I was telling you I did with my nieces. So we actually, it's a personal development training. And we assess each other, but because I'm usually the trainer, so they don't normally assess me. So yesterday, they insisted that we must do the test, me and my husband. So we did the test, and they told me, Auntie, you are very disorganized. That was the feedback about me. Yeah. So I told them, I'm actually not disorganized because my personality, I tend to be almost a perfectionist, so I've stepped down because of politics. Now I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not disorganized, I'm just overwhelmed. That's the reality, I'm overwhelmed. Because after this, I didn't finish. I was supposed to go to a government office because we've run 30 minutes late. I have now pushed it. And the PS I was going to see will say, you are disorganized, you didn't come for my meeting. Then I was supposed to also meet somebody else. Will cancel that. Then now I have that TV. I'm supposed to prepare to go to my constituency tomorrow. And I have a few things that I have to do before I go there. There were some things I was supposed to do to take to them. Now I will not have time to do it. Then I appear disorganized when I'm just overwhelmed. And that's the reality. And we are overwhelmed both resource-wise and time-wise. I mean, even with time as a resource. Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Stella?
Thank you very much again. I guess for me, what I want to say from all the comments that came at the end is that this has also been quick mentorship for me, really. And so I want to thank you all because I've learned a lot. I've learned that our contexts are different. Yeah. We may be East Africans, but there are things that we value in Uganda and hold on to. But to have a Leshomo who doesn't have a degree and is in parliament and is actually active, but there is a gender expert who's silent, abuses the very notion of how each country chooses and holds sacred the criteria for one becoming a representative. So that's learning for me. I want to thank people. The book, I'm very excited about Rig or Be Rigged Out. Because again, realpolitik, nobody taught me. I don't speak very good Kiswahili, but I think I understood you to say that She is mentoring people and saying, when you're going to this thing, put on trousers. I was once arrested when all I had was my thong. You know a thong?
Yeah.
And the people who were with me, the other women who were with me, all had leggings inside, and all I had was a thong. And because I'm quite active when I'm being arrested, of course my skirt got torn. And you know what they saw. You know what the media loves. And like, she wears a thong with all that body mass distributed the way it is. Anyway, so just to say very quickly that we must celebrate those women in our midst who are in power but are secure enough to share. Things like that. Wear trousers when you're going to a rally, because maybe you know it, maybe everybody knows it, but some of us were just entering politics, don't know. In the university, who's going to beat me up in my university chair? Nobody. And I can say whatever I want to say in the university and get away with it, although I was arrested and detained and thrown out of the university. So you said a thing that I think is important, that there is a gap between those of us in elective politics, so I'm already assuming the chair, and those on the other side looking on and saying, you, right? What I want to appreciate Forum Civ for is creating a space where openness and transparency has not been, it's been safe, it's been whole, but it's been truthful. And that the people up here have also responded really safely and respectfully. Sometimes, maybe it's because of the lack of democracy in Uganda, that sometimes when these sort of interactions happen, the eggs come out, okay? And the bodyguards come up, and the media has a field day. But this has been very respectful, and for me, it's very therapeutic that actually we can have a space in East Africa where members of parliament sit with those who are not in parliament, and a professor, right? A professor in the university, and it's civil. For me, it's very therapeutic, and I pray that my country can reach here, because, amen, because we are really, so I want to thank you for allowing me to celebrate Democracy Week in Kenya, and to be able to say the things that I'm saying that I can't say back home, but also I want to celebrate women in power, because you're examples. And I also want to celebrate, lastly, that although you've been arrested, beaten, violated, brutalized, named, shamed, whatever, you're still going strong and you share your stories. And please write your book and share it with us one day as well. And stay beautiful with your hairs, different women, different shoes, different clothes, different, even nails. But I think what you're doing for us is to say, come as you are, and remain as you are, and it is your space. And it's okay. You were talking about political parties and crossing the line and breaking the rules. I'm already in trouble. I break the ideology. I'm left of left, right? I don't think we have parties in Uganda that are away from center. Most of them are very conservative. I think many of them are rightist, actually, even the opposition. But I'm left of left of left. I'm left in everything that I do, usually. And so it's difficult. Shall we form new parties? In the morning we were saying maybe we need a women's party. And as told in Kenya, we already have a women's political party. Do I want to form a new party? Watch the space. Thank you very much.
I think, let me start by thanking Sid for allowing me this opportunity to be here. I think such spaces are normally very rare. And I would encourage you to continue this. Secondly, is Catherine here and Augustine? Yeah. I think I would urge you to, if possible, continue empowering people like Power 254. And the donor community, I know, and Millie will agree with this, that 2002 did us a lot of injustice, particularly in the civil society movement. A lot of civil society actors entered parliament because the majority, I think, had entrism kind of concept. And unfortunately, the donor funds dried up for democratic space. I think it is high time that that space is reinvigorated. And I would urge donors, I know I have one in my house, my wife works for DFID. I've tried convincing her to do 1, 2, 3 things, and I'm happy that in 1, 2, 3 ways, she's also part and parcel of ensuring 254 exists. More importantly, the youth in this country need a Malema moment. I don't think any political party will include you anywhere. These folks will only come to you when you beat their octogenarians. And I think the time is now. In 2022, field your candidates. Don't go for ODM nomination. Don't go for KANU nomination. Don't go for those whatever nominations. And if only you can get 3, like in the city here, Mathare constituency, MP in waiting can be this girl here. Right? She may not be nominated by one of the bigger parties. But now the question is groundwork. When you have a Malema moment, these guys will sit and listen. Let me give you an example, final one. My first time to go to Meru, I was thrilled by the degree to which I saw the gravelia tree. I asked the agriculturalist and I was told that tree does not consume much water, gets nutrients back to the soil, and lives alongside in complete partnership with plants that feed human beings. When I went back to Siaya, my rural home, and I gave seed money of 50,000 to my local church so that the boys in the church and girls would start a tree nursery. The parents told me, you teach in the university and you want our children to plant trees. Meaning that you are also part of the bigger problem. I got my brother, who was by then also a 4th-year student, and we did a nursery at my mother's home. When the entire home and our plant, all our gardens were covered in gravelia, everybody came back to tell me, can you help us do it? Millie, one day I'll take you to my mother's home. Maybe it's the only place covered in trees, the Meru Way. And everybody now wonders how it happened. And I think in Nyanza, trees is a problem. In fact, when you pass Kisi,
you can teach me that one too.
When you pass Kisi, the only time you know you are now in Luo Nyanza is when the trees are no longer there. So, at times, the practical people in me around Migori and where's this place? No, Rongo. People around Rongo have copied Kisis. Now, what we need to understand is nobody. We may have gone to school during the days when they came to recruit you in campus. At the moment, my friend, you must be able to be visible, to be seen. Okay. And the civil society gives you that opportunity and platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And as we come to an end, we have snagged the rooftop. I'd like to invite Catherine to make a vote of thanks and give us a final conclusion. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you so much for being patient. A round of applause to the amazing audience for being patient. Makofi kwenye tafadhalini. And to the panelists, makofi sana. Thank you so much for bearing with me. And thank you so much. Catherine, karibu.
Thank you so much. I don't even know what to add. I don't know what more to say, after such very enlightening discussions. I'm not sure what to say anymore, but I think what I know is for sure that we promised you from morning a moment to learn, to share experiences, and to have what? Fun. And that's what we do as our Forum CIV, which is Forum for Civil Society. We create a platform for engagement, a platform to get real life experiences. I'm sure even if you've not read Millie's book, and Stella that she's writing, and many that she's writing, probably she would write, and Dr. Olunga's articles, and Patricia's stories, you have seen them, you have heard from the horse's mouth. So all I want to say is thank you so much, our audiences. Thank you for following, thank you for asking the questions, and thank you to our panelists. I must say it was not, when we started this planning, Augustine and I and the team were thinking how difficult it would be to get the panelists here. And now that's a challenge to you as you aspire, as you go. Be flexible, be available. It only took one phone call to get Millie. It took one phone call to get Dr. Stella. It took one phone call to get Dr. Olunga, to get Patricia. So be available. I look at you, Njoki, as you're asking these questions to Patricia. One day probably I see you as an aspiring politician. 2022. So you will be on this side, and someone will be sitting on that side asking you similar questions. So see, watch, and learn.
That when I came in, actually, about this group, because I was in coalition on violence against women when I was your age, and we were singing the exact same song you were singing when you started, and I was like, wow, this is me 10 years from now.
Yes.
I shortened it to 5.
Yes. So see, watch, and learn. So thank you so much for being available. Our aim is to continue with these conversations. As much as resources are limited, we try. Dr. Olunga, you've challenged us to keep going. So we try our best to keep having these conversations going. So I want to thank all of you, and also thank the Forum Civ team, Power 254, Siasa Place, under the Wajibu Wetu program for making this possible. And thank our moderator, Danish. Danish, yes, Danish, yes. And also thank Njoki, who was our moderator in the morning. And I just leave you with one thing that our dear Njoki has said again. We do what? I want to say it together with me. We educate, we organize, we liberate,
and celebrate.
And celebrate. And celebrate. So thank you so much. Have a very nice evening, and keep following the discussions and the hashtag defending democracy. Tomorrow we are here again for another youth session. So please follow us. If you're not here physically, follow us on our social platforms. Okay. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you. I'd like a selfie with the panel.
I know.